Bless you.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome council and welcome our gallery and our viewing public today to our regular council meeting for Wednesday, July 19th, 2023. We did have a published agenda that was on our website, but we're going back to something that we used to do, and that's I'll stand and we're going to play our national anthem. So please put your mics. We can only improve, so we'll do that. All right. So as I had said earlier, and thanks for everybody to taking part of that, is we do have a published agenda. It's in front of council today. And are there any additions or deletions from that agenda? Well, I'd like to add the correspondence with regards to an email received last week with regards to bag tags. And I think I copied everybody to have that added. And that's with regards to the, as we all know, past June 30th, they were to no longer be used, but it's a request to have them extended. So did everybody see that email? Councillor Wickens, you saw it? Okay, so I'll have that added. Are there any other additions? Go ahead, Councillor Wickens.
Dear, what have we got here? I'm right at it. Item 8.1, recommendation number 5. I think we're going to remove that.
Okay.
I think.
Right.
And then I'll come forward with a notice of motion later.
Okay, thanks for that slight change.
Yeah.
And just on that item that I'm adding, I'm asking it to be added to 12.1 because there is a report there on the waste management.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, are there any additions to changes to the agenda? Would you like to move that?
Sure.
Okay, so to add, can we add a motion to add both of them, or we want, Madam Clerk, do we need a motion to make that change for each one? Oh, okay, so
Add
So-
and remove.
Deputy Mayor Nielsen is moving that change. Councillor Dubik is making that a second. Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, those have been changed. Now I need a motion to accept the amended agenda. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Allwood. Any conversation there? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. So now we have an approved agenda. So moving into our procedural bylaw, we have what the part is, it's open forum, and that allows individuals to speak, whether in person or on Zoom with regards to any item on the agenda for 3 minutes. Okay, so from that, Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have anybody registered to speak?
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. Yes, we have 2 people registered for open forum, both in person today. The first one is Lesley Telfser, thank you. And she's speaking on the item you just added to the agenda, 12.1. Thank you.
Okay, the podium is yours. Welcome, and you have 3 minutes, and whenever you're ready.
Great. Good morning, Honorable Mayor McQueen, councillors, and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Lesley Telfser. I am the owner of Rockland Inn Bed and Breakfast and Rockland Inn Ice Cream and Snack Shop. And I'm here today to voice concern over the expiration of the garbage tags, a service that myself and other citizens have paid for that is no longer being honored. Garbage tags are currency for garbage overage service. Like Canada Post stamps, stamps are currency for postage and they don't expire. There were no rules and stipulations regarding the purchasing of these garbage tags, and when they were purchased, they therefore should also, in my opinion, not expire. As a commercially zoned property, a small business that relies on these overage tags, we don't have extra allowances for garbage. Even though we have requested it several times, we have not been given that approval. So with the bed and breakfast and the ice cream shop, we have a lot of garbage serving the public. So we do drive 40 minutes round trip to get to a store to purchase these tags. And so often in advance, we buy 6 months to a year in advance. So we don't have to do that big long drive in the winter or when we're busy in the summer, especially. We are in a recession and a time of economic hardship. Everybody is struggling from inflation, rising interest rates, cost of groceries, gas, living. So every dollar counts. I know this as a citizen and a small business owner, sorry, struggling to survive. Sorry, I was not expecting that. And to recover from the COVID fallout.
Just take your time there.
People in our community cannot afford to lose $20, $30, $40. I don't believe it's fair or right for them not to be able to use the tags that they paid for with their hard-earned money. I'm very sorry for my emotion.
Just take your time.
I think they should be allowed to use them and not expire. And if that's not the case, then they should be refunded as they were paid for. Thank you for your time and consideration. That is all I have for my comments.
Well, thank you for coming today and speaking. If you wish to hang around, we'll be dealing with that a little later on in today's agenda. Or
Unfortunately, I have to work.
no, you can watch it from Zoom or you can watch it after on the recording as well.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So thank you. So we don't take questions. We
Okay.
just receive it. Okay, thank you for that. All right. Keep serving that ice cream. All right, moving on then, Madam Clerk. We have a second one.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. Next up is Doug Alton, He's speaking on the Flesherton fling, which he says relates to item 6.2.
Welcome, Doug.
Thank you. I'm actually here with an invitation to council. I'm here wearing 2 hats, one with the Flesherton Beautification Committee, another as part of the Pickleball Club of Grey Highlands. I was approached by the organizers of the fling to see if we wouldn't organize some sort of activity for the fling to do with pickleball. And as council may be aware, last summer we set up a demonstration court on the basketball court at Memorial Park to try and grow the game of pickleball in the community. And we've been pretty successful about it. We wanted to carry this on and run some sort of demonstration and opportunity for attendees of the fling to try their hand at it. And to sort of spur this on, I'm hoping to run we call them celebrity matches. And so I'm here to invite council to try their hand at pickleball on August the 12th. 1 p.m. is the tentative time for the matches. I've already approached a few of you individually, but I will be approaching everyone to sort of confirm, make sure that you are able to attend and are willing to attend. No experience is necessary, but if you have any concerns, we're quite prepared to organize a practice session ahead of time so that no embarrassment is involved. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that. And I think you, if you can send out a formal invitation to everybody, and then people can respond at their times or their availability as well. Thank you for that. All right, just double check. Are there any other delegations or open forum speakers? Sorry.
No, there's no further open forum speakers.
All right. So then moving on our agenda to item 4, declaration of pecuniary interest. Is there any interest with regards to council members of the amended agenda? All right, if one does, oh, I do have one. Oh, gosh. Fourth line, there's a zoning bylaw on zoning on the fourth line that I must declare, and I'll declare it at that time when I get to the specifics with regards to a surplus farm building. Yes, 10.3. I will be stepping away, Deputy Mayor. Okay. All right, just last call. Anybody else have a declaration of interest? Okay. So we have the approval of the minutes for July 5th. Can I move in a seconder for those? Councillor Allwood, Councillor Wickens. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. All right, we have 3 delegations today on site item or section 6 of our agenda. And to start off with, we have with regards to a presentation from Chris Carrier with regards to fire Marque presentation. So good morning, Chris. And I know a little bit of a bio. You were the mayor of Collingwood at one time, and you're also the chair of the NBCA. Yes, prior to 2010, because I think you were on there just before I came on there. So
yes, your worship, I was. I served for 13 years, elected official of town of Collingwood, and I actually served 8.5 months in the last term of council. Collingwood Council had somebody who quit in January, and they appointed me to fill in.
Right.
I did tell them it wasn't a comeback tour, but I was happy to be back and get my toe back in that pond. But I'm happy to be back fully into the private sector. So thank you for that introduction.
We do see you at municipal conferences throughout the year as well. And I'll pass over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Firemark was created prior to 2010 by a number of retired and semi-retired insurance professionals on the adjusting side of the business, not on the retail side of the business. I was hired in 2011 to look at their program with a municipal lens to ensure that we weren't bringing any harm to policyholders who you probably know better as constituents, community members, and stakeholders. Next slide, please. We began with 0 clients. We now have a third of Ontario's municipalities as clients. We also have clients in British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and actually I'm flying to New Brunswick next week to meet with some clients there. In Grey County and Simcoe County and Bruce County, near you, we have a number of clients. So there's certainly people that you can speak with from Chatsworth or Meaford, Owen Sound, in Grey County. In Bruce County, I believe we have 6 of 7 municipalities. In Simcoe County, I believe it's 11 of 16. So we certainly have a lot of folks that you can call up and ask if the program is working for them. And I have no doubt they will say yes. Next slide, please. The insurance industry is something that has changed since I was hired in 2011. In 2010, there were 234 insurance companies operating coast to coast to coast across Canada. Now there's about 193. The top 20 represent 84% of the marketplace. There are a number of mutuals in Ontario. They are nationally small market share companies, but in Ontario, they represent collectively about 15% of the marketplace, and we all know them as very good and strong community members. Next slide, please. Almost all property insurance policies in Canada under the additional coverages section will have something called fire department service charges. It will vary by company and by coverage type. So if it's farm, industrial, commercial, residential, boats and airplanes, those types of things, the coverages will vary. So this is a small commercial policy. There's $25,000 additional coverage for a fire department expense. Next slide, please. There's also a lot of companies that have a smaller amount, $1,000. This is a small farm mutual company that has $1,000 limit. So there's $1,000 that can be recovered. I would like to point out that the farm mutual sector is certainly a dynamic sector of the marketplace. Intact Insurance has bought a number of the farm mutuals. Their newest policy wordings, which we received last year, has increased the coverage to $25,000. So it's a dramatic increase, and we have seen some other increases as well, up to $5,000. So it just depends on which company that we're dealing with. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Our legal definition of indemnification technology is important for me to emphasize to your community and to yourselves that we invoice the insurance company on behalf of your fire service, on behalf of the municipality. We most often will deal with, I'm going to use cooperators as an example. We would know who the adjuster is for cooperators in this area. We would be dealing with the adjuster for cooperators. I'm not sending an invoice to the policyholder. I want to emphasize that I'm not sending an invoice to the policyholder and asking them to pay the bill and be reimbursed by their insurance company. That's not how our program works. Our program works with our team working with the insurance company's team to recover those funds and return them to you. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We're asking two things for you. One is to pass a bylaw, a cost recovery bylaw, or you can amend your consolidated fee bylaw. I have provided those options to your staff. Next slide, please. And the reason why the bylaw is required is that the insurance policy is written in such a way. This is Allstate Elite homeowner policy wording. It says that if there's a legal responsibility or a requirement for them to pay, it's a $5,000 coverage for Allstate Elite homeowner policy. So the contract is written in such a way that on a large loss incident, the municipality can't go back retroactively and say, we would like you to pay. You're essentially putting the industry on notice that you've unlock the coverage as soon as you pass the cost recovery bylaw, that you want access to those recoveries. Next slide, please. The process is fairly straightforward. I know it may look complicated with that slide, but your chief will tell you that most of the work that's done in box number 1 is already being done. So we would just like a copy of that information. When we get a copy of that information, we do adhere to the privacy laws, both nationally and provincially. We do have a database that we pull up. We'll know who once again, who the adjuster is. We'll know what the coverages are. We'll start interacting. The average recovery takes about 14 weeks. The shortest recovery has been 8 days. The longest recovery has been 42 months, and that was a non-residential fire. It was an industrial fire, and they had a maximum cap of all the costs that we paid out. And so we kept abreast of that, and we notified our client at the end of those 42 months that we were able to recover $34,000 for them in the fire department costs. You receive 70% of the funds that we recover. We retain 30% for ourselves. Our largest client is in excess of 300,000 in population. Our smallest client is less than 500 people in population. All of our clients, it's a 70-30 split. So I just don't want you thinking that you're paying more because you're a smaller or township as averse to a small urban or large urban. Everyone is on the same split. There is no annual, there is no minimum. So if we work on a file and there's no recovery, there's no cost to you. If the chief is unsure that it's a recoverable file and he wants us to review the file, there is no cost for us to review the file. The only time that we receive compensation is when you receive compensation. Next slide, please. The monies stay within the fire service budget for 3 broad categories: public education. Next slide, please. personnel training. Next slide, please. And capital purchases. Because it's a cost recovery bylaw, it's technically a fee as opposed to a tax. So the Supreme Court of Canada decided in 1998 the difference between a tax and a fee. And so the municipality is entitled to have a fee bylaw and they're entitled to tax. What you're not entitled to do is take a fee and turn it into an indirect tax. So we've insulated you with our contract by stating in section 5 that the money stays within the fire service budget. So it does not become an indirect tax by going into general revenues. Next slide, please. Gosh, it was so nice. I was on council when they changed from the prescriptive act giving us natural persons powers. Anybody who has served prior to that, you'll know being under the thumb of the province prior to that was sometimes very irritating to decision makers. Because you have natural persons powers, the test of your actions is reasonableness. Is it reasonable for you to pass a bylaw to unlock an insurance contract to which you're not a signatory to, but you are an identified first party coverage under the additional coverages section for the fire department service charges? The policyholder is not entitled to those funds. Only the fire service is. So if the fire service doesn't get it, then the insurance company keeps it. Policy is written in such a way that you have to pass a bylaw to unlock the coverage. Every step that we've asked you to take is reasonable and will withstand any challenge. And to date, that's not been challenged. Next slide, please. The IBC of Canada, the Insurance Bureau of Canada, who represents the insurance industry coast to coast to coast, they do publish their fact book every year. It does contain some interesting tidbits that I like to emphasize to you. Along with covering claim cost, premiums are calculated to cover the cost of operating expenses and unexpected profits. So it is something that very much like your budget process, you have all of these line items that you look at. Some are fixed amounts and some are variable amounts. The pressure that you see in your budget is for your variable amounts because they're subject to inflationary pressures. Same with premium costs. They're looking at replacement costs of property and contents of homes, essentially, and businesses. That's facing inflationary pressures. Fire department service charges are a fixed cost. They're the same amount. Cooperators in 2015, I think the coverage was 5,000. It's 5,000 today, and I expect it to be 5,000 in a few years from now. There is no inflationary pressure on that. They've already forecasted that they should be paying out those costs. Next slide, please.
So Chris, we're just about out of time. How much more time do you need?
I think there's only 2 or 3 more slides.
Okay.
Okay. There's no deductible applied to this section of the policy. Next slide, please. It does not affect the amount that the policyholder is entitled to. So if the policyholder is entitled to $500,000 in payouts, they do not deduct the amount that's paid for the fire service charge from that check. Next slide, please. And once again, I just would like to emphasize that what we're doing is we're asking the insurance industry to pay out on the fire department service charge coverage for which they're charging their policyholders. Next slide, please. And that's it. It's always fun to drop off a check. I'm doing that this week and I'm doing that next week. Having sat in your chairs, essentially, with that responsibility, I know how much the fire service needs the money, and it gives me great pleasure to do that. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for that presentation, Chris. And are there any questions from council members with regards to the presentation? All right, so then I need a motion then to receive the presentation. Is there any direction that we wish to, Councillor Allen, you wish to speak to?
Yeah, I would make a motion to receive it for information and direct staff to bring back a report on the feasibility of doing this.
Sure. Okay, and Councillor Newbeck is seconding that. And I know we've bumped into you all the time. I think you're at FCM even as well.
Yes, FCM, AMO, OSM.
Yeah, all those ones and that. So you used to give out those little nickels or something, wasn't there?
We did, yes, that's a good
Little wooden
memory.
pieces. So, all right, any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, that is carried. Well, thanks for coming and bringing this to us. And I know we've talked a few times at your booth
and we will be at AMO, so booth number 214. Please stop by. And thank you all for your elected service. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Have a great day. All right, so that moves on to our item 6.2 then. Our second presentation today is the Pickleball Club of Grey Highlands, Wayne Bumstead, who's here. And good morning. And again, you have 10 minutes. So if it gets close to 1 minute, I'll be putting my finger up saying.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Your Worship. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of council, my name is Wayne Bumstead, as you've heard. I'm the chair of the steering committee for the Pickleball Club of Grey Highlands. I reside in Grey Highlands and live on Blue Jay Crescent with my wife, Melissa Dennison. I haven't lived here all my life, but I did grow up in Flesherton and Markdale, and I'm a proud graduate of Grey Highlands Secondary School.
Well, you got it made there then.
Thank you. Next slide. I'm also a pickleball enthusiast, and in early May of this year, I recruited 5 other like-minded locals to form a steering committee. We shared a common view that the growing population of pickleball players in this area needs an effective voice. The other committee members are Norm Green, Doug Alton, Karen Alton, Reed Dennison, and Julie Prendergast, 4 of whom are here today. We concluded that forming a nonprofit sports club was the best way to proceed with our vision. And Pickleball Club of Grey Highlands is an affiliated club of Pickleball Canada and Pickleball Ontario. That affiliation provides us with many benefits, including $5 million of liability insurance coverage, as well as sports injury coverage for our members. We have a website and we have adopted a phone app for scheduling pickleball playing times and events for our members. Next slide. Early on, we published a mission statement setting out our values, guiding principles, and initiatives. And despite the shortcomings in the local pickleball facilities, which I will speak to momentarily, we've experienced a rapid membership enrollment with currently nearly 60 members in our fold. We believe that this shows an enthusiastic embracing of our mission statement, and it represents the support for our key initiative, which is to work toward the development of better pickleball facilities in Grey Highlands, suitable for conducting pickleball programs for all ages. Next slide, please. Pickleball has been widely described as the fastest growing sport in North America. Based on surveys conducted by a national research company on behalf of Pickleball Canada in each of the last 4 years, the growth has been characterized as explosive. The slide in front of you provides some key data taken from those surveys. The number of pickleball players in Canada grew from 350,000 in 2020 to 1.37 million as of January 2023. 45% of those are playing 4 times or more each week. The age group showing the fastest rate of growth is young adults aged 18 to 34. Which dispels the commonly held perception that pickleball is just a game for seniors. Another trend that isn't covered in the surveys, but that I can speak to personally, is the popularity of pickleball destination travel. Destinations which have invested in developing pickleball facilities are realizing significant economic benefits by attracting pickleball playing visitors. Next slide, please. Why is pickleball so popular? Well, let me offer 7 main reasons to you. First, it's a healthy recreational activity. It's highly social, mostly played in a doubles format. It's easy to learn and become proficient at, so you shouldn't worry about accepting Doug Alton's invitation for the Flesherton Fling. The personal investment in equipment is quite low. Basically, you need a pair of sneakers, running shoes, and a decent entry-level pickleball paddle costs less than $100. It can be played by all ages, from youth to people in their senior years, and it's often played by parents with their children, grandparents with their grandchildren. It promotes gender equity. At the recreational level, men and women compete against one another without any significant disadvantage because of their genders. And lastly, it has a small physical footprint. 4 pickleball courts take up roughly the same area as a standard tennis court. Next slide, please.
Can you say that again?
4 pickleball courts take up roughly the same area as a standard tennis court.
So it's divided into 4 sections then.
Right. On the slide before you now, you'll see references to pickleball that are quotations taken from the Grey Highlands Recreation Master Plan. They're found in the multi-use sports courts overview section, the indoor recreation facility recommendations on arenas section, and the outdoor recreation and parkland recommendations. They speak for themselves, and I leave it to you to refer to them at your leisure. However, there are two main points to be taken here. First of all, the Recreation Master Plan confirms that there is an emerging demand for pickleball in facilities in Grey Highlands. And secondly, the Recreation Master Plan contains a strong recommendation that the development of pickleball court facilities should be planned in consultation with organized member-based groups. And that is what we are at the Club of Grey Highlands. Next slide, please. Okay. There are no dedicated pickleball courts in Grey Highlands at this time. Pickleball is presently being played here on surfaces designed for other purposes that have been adapted for pickleball. All of these adaptations are player-made and makeshift. None of them have been professionally created. And all of them are limited by the physical characteristics of the locations where they have been set up. In terms of outdoor courts, there is only one. At Flesherton Memorial Park, a pickleball court outline has been hand-painted on the basketball surface. This court has the least physical limitations of all the available public courts. Still, there is further work that ought to be done in order to improve the quality of play and to address some safety concerns at that location. There is a steep hill at the back of the court that significantly erodes, and because of that, rocks, dirt, and debris continuously come onto the court, and we clean that up as best we can. However, a barrier would be useful to prevent that from happening. There are surface imperfections in the asphalt that affect play and ought to be repaired. As I said, the court and lines were hand painted by non-professionals, and they should be marked out with a proper professional painting job. Lastly, there are some overhanging branches at the back of the court that should be cut back. Next slide, please. In terms of indoor courts, there are a total of 7 available. There are 2 courts that have been created by outlining them with tape on the floor of Osprey Community Hall, and another 2 courts similarly outlined with tape in the Center Grey Recreation Complex Hall. However, court conditions at both of those locations are problematic from a quality of play and a safety perspective. The halls have low ceilings, which means that the playing areas are undersized, and that affects play. The available space is really too small at both locations to create sufficient space for 2 proper courts. The playing areas are cramped by walls, and it's too small to put any barriers between the courts, which would prevent errant balls or even players entering into a playing area from the adjacent court. So that creates hazardous and potentially dangerous circumstances for the players. And in both locations, we've had to adopt local rules in order to alter play but try and maintain safe playing conditions. In addition to those 4 courts, I should add that those are the only courts that are available for play during the wintertime. However, in addition to those 4 courts, there are 3 courts that have been outlined with tape on the floor of the Markdale Arena, obviously only available in summertime. However, they're also somewhat hazardous. The arena floor is made of polished concrete, which is the opposite of what a proper court surface should be made of. It's slippery and dangerous, and that's a concern at times.
You have 1 minute left there.
Pardon me?
You have 1 minute left.
1 minute, thank you. These indoor courts are currently being used almost exclusively by the Southeast Grey Community Health Center, essentially to support a drop-in program for retired adults. There are no youth programs being run at any of them. Next slide, please. Okay, there are initiatives being taken by our neighbors to deal with what they have recognized is a growing demand for pickleball. In the town of Blue Mountains, the township of Georgian Bluffs, and the town of Meaford, initiatives are underway And in particular, I would like to refer you to what's going on in the town of Blue Mountains, where 4 dedicated outdoor courts were constructed at the Tomahawk Recreation Center. They still aren't meeting the need there. And recently it was determined that since they only have 2 courts that are available during the winter time, they've got to get going and come up with ideas to meet what they call is an enormous demand for pickleball facilities. Next slide, please. In Hanover, they've converted 2 tennis courts to 6 pickleball courts. The photo you see in that slide is not a stock image. It's an actual picture of that facility, which is state-of-the-art type setup for pickleball courts. Next slide, please. What are we asking for? I'm here today to seek a motion to support the initiatives of the Pickleball Club of Grey Highlands by acknowledging pickleball as a high priority consideration in the deliberation of the Recreation Master Plan. And secondly, providing the Pickleball Club of Grey Highlands access to staff for the purposes of first examining options for the improvement of the court at Flesherton Memorial Park. Secondly, examining options for securing new dedicated pickleball facilities in a central location for outdoor play, as well as pickleball courts in any new or repurposed indoor facilities. And lastly, securing access for our club events and programs at the various community facilities, including Markdale Arena, Flesherton Arena, and Osprey Hall, beyond what is currently being offered at them by the Community Health Center. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, well, thank you, Wayne, and exciting times. And I know that the Feversham Community Center, Osprey Community Center started, I don't know, was it 10 years ago? Must be getting quite a few years now while they started the pickleball there, Mr. Mann. And I think at one time there were 80 people I remember hearing that were playing out of there, and which is exciting in that sense. And I understand it's becoming a very popular sport in Florida too, as
extremely popular in Florida, extremely popular in Texas and Arizona, all of those places where they can play all year round,
right,
and outdoors.
Might be a little tough in the last week with this warm weather, but certainly those that do travel south in the wintertime are probably or maybe that's where they got experienced or got exposed to it as well. Any questions, comments? And go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor McQueen. Just a quick question for you. So you identified that the CHC is running pickleball in the Markdale Arena and the Osprey Arena. Just wondering where your relationship is with them right now. Are you trying to help facilitate the games that they're running? Are you trying to work with them on terms of scheduling so that your club is able to access? How is that working right now?
We have reached out to Kathy Fraser, who is kind of the chief supervisor of those programs at both locations. And we reached out to Lynn Mann, who is the volunteer more or less in charge of what's going on at Feversham. We've received very positive feedback from both of them, indicating that they want to cooperate with us, and we of course want to cooperate with them. We're looking to enhance their programs because, as I mentioned, basically what they're servicing is a retirement community. And we see that there's a need here for more than that. There's a need to provide pickleball for youth, and there's a need to provide pickleball for people that can't come to the halls at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning. They want to come after work or at a later time. So that's what that's how we see us fitting in with them, providing other programs that are additional or supplementary to what they're doing.
Yep.
So currently the Pickleball Club of Grey Highlands is more facilitating the Flesherton outdoor one that volunteers and groups have been put together.
Yes.
And then you're trying to expand, but it's more trying to expand the amount of programming. So your hope is to have timed and set pickleball events at the other areas that the CHC is using, but just in off times kind of thing. Is that where you're looking for as a short-term goal? I mean, some of the view is more long-term, and as we look at the master recreation plan and understand the whole scope of recreation within Grey Highlands, which is something that council's undertaking this term. But short-term, is that more where you're looking at, like trying to develop programming time schedule, like you're saying?
Short-term, we're looking at getting more space available outdoors. We're currently playing at Flesherton, as you mentioned, but we're also playing at 2 private courts. And we're looking for more development of public courts that are outdoors that we can move to and use our expanded programs. In the wintertime, yes, we're going to need indoor space, and currently the only places that are available are Osprey and the Center Grey Recreation Complex.
Anything else, Deputy Mayor?
Just one last comment. There are tennis courts at the Beaver Valley Ski Club and there's tennis courts at the Markdale Curling Club. Are you in conversations with them and trying to expand pickleball at those locations?
I can't speak to the Beaver Valley site because it's a private club and I haven't had any discussions with them. With respect to the tennis courts at Markdale Curling Club, they're used by tennis players, and so they're not very willing to make adjustments to allow the pickleball players to play. For example, the nets are at a different height for tennis than they are for pickleball, and they don't want the nets to be lowered to play pickleball. So they'll let us play, but we have to play under their conditions.
Good for me.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? I know tennis was a big thing probably back in the 70s and 80s, and then everybody developed tennis elbow and all that stuff and ran out of steam. But I don't know if you can get pickleball elbow or not. But anyway, I'm looking for a motion. Somebody like to care to move a motion with regards to receiving this, and there was some requests. I don't know if you wanted to come back in and report, Deputy Mayor.
All right, I'm gonna try and craft this as my thoughts are going, and my apologies, Clerk Martel. Motion to receive the delegation for information, a request that we can have in the motion that we recognize pickleball as was requested, but moreover, that staff, when we discuss the master recreation plan, which I believe is at the community hall this month, that pickleball does become a portion of that conversation, and that during considerations of our halls and arenas and moving forward with master recreation, that pickleball is a considered high profile sport within Grey Highlands to work within those discussions. I don't know how to craft that one.
But do you not want to report on their request? Because they have made a number of requests, and I think they should be addressed probably in a report, should it not?
So I would think that as we're looking at the master recreation plan and everything that's going on across Grey Highlands as a whole, we shouldn't be trying to focus on one quick fix for one particular thing. We have a large conversations that are going to be taking place over the next couple of months that will answer and explore what the pickleball club is looking for as we move forward with those. Because right now, if we say, okay, we'll have staff look at specifically pickleball court in Maxwell, where can we put it? We aren't taking into consideration everything else that might happen at the Maxwell playground. So it needs to be part of that greater conversation than a quick one-off saying, yes, let's do pickleball. There is demand for pickleball, 100%. I think council recognizes that. And for myself and my motion, I'm trying to 100% support that, but I don't want to have considerations go in one direction when we're trying to look at the whole prospect and the whole playing field across Grey Highlands right now. So that's what I'm trying to do. So motion would read that council received the Pickleball Club of Grey Highlands delegation for information, and that council recognized the growing sport of pickleball in the community, and that staff reference considerations of pickleball during the master recreation plan discussions. And I think that does do a very good job of capturing what I was trying to say.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that, Councillor Elwood? Discussion on that motion that's on the floor. I don't think it's going to stop you from proceeding forward with a lot of different options there, but okay, seeing there's no other discussion, all in favor of that motion? That is carried. Okay, well then, thanks for bringing us aware of all the exciting things that's happening with pickleball. And I don't know if you can close down a road and play pickleball and say car. As you have portable nets, but hey, anything's possible, right?
The net's a little more unwieldy than the hockey nets.
You got some fun with it too. So, okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you.
All right. Okay, we have one more presentation for today's council meeting, and then we'll take a break after that. So under item 6.3, Friends of Lake Eugenia, we have a presentation from Doug Hill and Morgan Anderson, and here in present. So welcome.
Good morning, Mayor McQueen, Deputy Mayor Nielsen, members of council and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Some of you may remember Doug and I from our delegation last April. Those of you seeing us for the first time, I'll just briefly recap. Doug and I are friends and residents of Lake Eugenia who over the years have become increasingly concerned with the declining water quality in the lake. We've seen increase in beach closures, aquatic growth, and incidents of, toxic blue-green algae. We've spoken to many people who share our concerns, but no one was taking action. So Doug and I decided to take it upon ourselves. And we started by forming a nonprofit corporation with charitable status dedicated solely to the purpose of improving the water quality in the lake. Sorry, can you go previous slide? Oh, that is? Oh. Should be an introductory. No, that's okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk. Slide one.
Yeah, perfect. Yep. Oh, that's great. So as I said, we are an independent incorporated charitable organization offering donors the opportunity to contribute tax deductible funds earmarked solely for the improvement of Lake Eugenia water quality. Friends is independent of all other organizations and has demonstrated the ability to rapidly fund research into Lake Eugenia water quality issues that have been apparent for over 30 years and have not been addressed. Friends has partnered with Hutchison Environmental Sciences of Bracebridge, a nationally recognized authority on lake water quality. In 2 years, Friends has raised over $60,000 in funds for Lake Eugenia research. All funds raised, except for minimal organizational fees, have been paid to Hutchison to support research. No administrative fees have been paid to the organizers of Friends. Next slide, please. What has Friends done? The first of 2 planned studies was completed in 22. This study was designed to provide a comprehensive base level analysis to identify the causative factors of excess aquatic growth and the early onset of toxic blue-green algae. A final report of phase 1 was issued in January 23. Hopefully you've been able to see that report, which we distributed to Mr. Marque. The simplified conclusion of this report is that a combination of increased global temperatures and phosphorus resident in the lake are the primary causes of the issues experienced. Next slide, please. What is Friends currently doing? Friends has authorized Hutchison to conduct an ongoing sampling program to better identify the mechanisms specific to Lake Eugenia that promote the uptake of phosphorus by the undesirable aquatic species. Monthly sampling started in May 23 and will continue into October. 3 sensor chains are currently in the lake. The purpose of these sensors is described by Hutchison as follows. There are sensors near the lake bed and near the surface. We are measuring oxygen, conductivity, and temperature above the lake bed, and conductivity and temperature near the surface. The goal is to understand changes in water column stratification, hypolimnetic oxygen concentration, and internal nutrient loading. The goal of phase 2 study is to identify possible remediation strategies that will reverse the decline of the lake's water quality. I'll now pass it on to Doug to continue.
Is what we'd like to talk to you today about are that we'd like to really partner with you. We've taken the initiative to fund the studies, but we'd like to involve the municipal government in what we're doing, and we've talked to Mr. Rapp. So we'd like to ask you to partner with us, help us direct our efforts, work in concert with the municipality, help us to interact with other governmental agencies on our behalf, access which you have as a municipality to help promote what we have done and where we're going. Use the information we've collected to help inform lake management policies. It's very critical information to you as you go forward in managing the lake. And I said, we're all in this together, don't need to duplicate the collection of scientifically valid information. We've taken great pains to make sure that our science will stand the test of peer review and outside analysis. Look at quick fixes, things that you could do. Look at public beach area, see if you could aerate it to suppress E. coli outbreaks and minimize bad publicity. There's some pretty simple technology that might be appropriate that I leave to you. And then begin to review in earnest the septic system functionality controls near the lake. Each septic system is a dynamic organism, whether old or new, that requires monitoring and maintenance to remain effective. Next slide, please. So those are things in terms of long-term goal. As I leave that slide, the important thing is we'd like to partner with you. We don't want to stand alone. The funding is what we're talking to you about today. Phase 2 is going to cost about $57,000. Each month costs about $6,000. The important thing is that once we started in May, we've got May, June, and July studies done. We can't stop because it has to be on a continuous basis for 6 months. We have enough money right now to sample through August 2023. We're actively fundraising. There'll be a fundraising letter that goes out right after this meeting, talking about what we did in the meeting. But we would like to work with you to see if there's some way that we can buffer this so that we can tell Hutchinson Environmental that we're continuing to be able to, or we're going to continue to be able to fund their studies. I'm not asking for an outward grant, is what I'm saying is, or what we're saying is, we are fundraising, but we hate to have to stop this and lose all of our data because we fall short on a cash flow situation sometime in the next 3 months. Yeah, so that's our request to you today. Really, it's threefold. Please work with us. We'd like to have access to Mr. Raffy if possible, please. Great help. The second thing is, if you could take a look yourselves at simple things such as aerating the beach so we don't get bad publicity. It could be a fairly simple and inexpensive fix to the E. coli situations. And we can make that information available to you if you need more information. The third thing is there some way that you can backstop us with a loan so that we don't have to discontinue our study? We're confident that we will get the money from the people at the lake. It's just a matter that we're running into a cash flow situation.
Okay, thanks, Doug. And there's also the other option of sponsorship as well. I don't know if there's a number. We spend a lot of money to a lot of engineering companies that I don't know if that's a possibility as well.
Yeah, if you could expand on that.
Well, just there's a number of companies or businesses that are in our municipality that could be approached for sponsoring it for the advertisement part of what you're doing.
We are working with them.
Okay.
We have had a generous contribution from Porteous.
Oh, yes. Yep.
I'm working with C&Ski because they do a lot of business on the lake, and with Russ. We did get $2,500 from the Cuckoo Valley Fishing Club.
Sorry, sir, can you go closer to the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. We did get $2,500 this week from the Cuckoo Valley Fishing Club. And so we're continuing to do that. And we would like to, we are going to expand it. We do carry the sponsors on our website.
Right.
And so we're working every angle we can think of, but we're coming to a real critical point and we need some help.
And I'm just thinking about engineering companies that may be also possible as another solution of sponsorship.
Okay. Would you be able to, Mr. Racky, help us out on that?
Well, there's a number that we use. I would say that you may have to source that out separately, but there are a number of engineering companies that are in our area that do work for municipalities and a lot of different things like that. So,
okay. Let me see if we can figure out how to tap into that.
yeah, absolutely.
But right now we're getting close to being against the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank
Questions from council? Just hang on, there might be some questions here.
Oh, sure.
Go ahead, Councillor Dubé.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So thank you very much for coming in. And of course, healthy environments, healthy lakes, healthy communities is always, a priority for us all. Just wondering in terms of, you've stated about, working together. So I always find, of course, making sure that we bring stakeholders together to look at I would say, significant efforts. I would say this is a significant effort. I'm not a water quality specialist myself, but I do understand that, to be able to understand, the the quality, say, of a lake, it takes many years, right? So you've started your own data collection last year. And of course, being able to understand the sort of the health and how a lake functions takes many years to sort of, to sort of have a good sense of like have a good database for that. There are other stakeholders like Grace Sobel, who does, who does do testing as well. They do testing of the river and of the lake. I know it's not complete, but they are, they do have 3 testing sites, in the lake area. There's OPG, who would probably have a bit of skin in the game as well. I think the municipality, is also sort of a partner in all of this. So my question to you is, when you think about, so you're approaching us, in terms of, to work together, are you also, how are you thinking about the other stakeholders? Because I think there's a variety of stakeholders who have sort of skin in the game here, including the other cottage associations. So maybe if you can just speak a little bit to that.
Sure. Love to. Just to talk about, you've got a couple of things in there in terms of the time, in terms of water quality analysis. Our phase 1 took all of the past data that was available out there, including from Grace Harbor Conservation Authority and the sampling that you're doing, Morgan, from the lake for FOCA. And we put that, Hutchinson Environmental put all that together, and that's all contained in the report. And the purpose of that was to get the changes in the lake documented over the past 20 some years is what the data in there. So we've done a lot of the work that you talked to about time consuming work and analyzing the lake, which allowed us to rapidly get to this point and say, hey, we know what has been going on in the lake. Now let's get down to the details. And that's why we're doing the 3 buoys, because that, instead of being a point in time observation, which many of the past data is, much of the past data is, this is a continuous monitoring that's going to give us this. It's read every month off an SD card on each buoy. And so by doing this work, we'll actually understand what the mechanism is that's going on in the lake that's allowing this phosphate to be freed and made available for plant growth and for blue-green algae. So in respect to your time frame, we have covered the many years that you're talking about and have worked on that. In terms of cooperation, we've done it completely in cooperation with Grace Sobel Conservation Authority. They have provided all of their data on the lake to Hutchinson Environmental, and we are coordinating with them on a scientific level, not on a political level in terms of what are we going to do, but really make sure that the science that Hutchinson is using is the same as that John Bittendorf is using at Grace Sobel Conservation Authority. So we're working with them also. We've also involved, help me out, please, Morgan, Brad Mulligan's organization. Okay. Yes, thanks. And we've involved them, and we're heavily involved with them in terms of communicating that. The one thing that is lurking in the background that I'm sure your question is Lake Eugenia Property Owners Association. We've been trying to work with them. It hasn't gone well, we'll be very honest with you. And right now we're at a point where we're saying to LaPoa, gee, thank you very much for fundraising for us. Really appreciate any funds, but we want to remain independent in terms of directing the efforts of the Friends of Lake Eugenia and the research efforts. At some time, I hope we'll be able to have a combined input on that, but it's so critical to get this phase done, because we will then have an idea of where we're going, and we can close the tent up a bit and say, okay, here's what we've got. Now, how are we going to attack it? Because the remedy will be quite expensive and extensive, probably in terms of permitting. Morgan, please.
No, agreed. I mean, our focus right now is fundraising and completing this phase, which is crucial, and we really want to keep the momentum alive. I'm sorry.
But the nicest thing is that our expectation at the end of this study, which will be done and published in early next year, is that we will be able to come to you and say, here's a potential remediation plan for Lake Eugenia to get it back, the water quality back in the lake. And we will have enough research and bona fide research to offer that. But does that help?
Councillor Dubé?
Yes, so thank you for that. That is helpful. I think one thing that I've always observed is, when stakeholders can all come together, to work on a significant effort. I would say this is an important, significant effort. That is, I think, always brings about the best outcomes when we can have sort of like a steering committee together to work on these types of things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two comments, and one is regarding the loan. I just see it, the way it's worded there, will be repaid if sufficient funds are raised. That's a little scary. And the other question is, you mentioned about access to our planner. What role would Mr. Rapke play in this?
I had to put in there if funds are available, because I didn't want to give you the impression that Morgan and I were personally guaranteeing the loan. So there is some risk associated with granting this loan. Our pledge to you is that we will continue to actively fundraise. When we sat down to talk about it, we thought we could come in and say, gee, can we get a grant or can we get some money? And instead we took the approach of getting a loan, saying that, hey, the weight should be on the property owners at Lake Eugenia to raise the funds. And so we didn't want to let them off the hook, if you will, for what we're trying to do by saying, oh, the municipality has covered all our expenses. So that's loan terminology. There is a chance that we could not repay it. Again, we can't personally guarantee it. However, we will make it, Morgan and I will make every effort to fundraise to repay the loan. And it helps. It's a liability to us that we can say, hey, municipality has partnered with us, is backing us, but has given us a loan, but we have to repay it. And so it does show a sign of cooperation between us. So that was the loan side of it. What was the other part? I'm sorry.
The role that our planner would play in this.
Just to keep him informed, Mr. Rapke is quite knowledgeable and it's been very great to work with. We've had some conversations in terms of statutory passage of statutory law in other townships regarding septic inspection. There's several examples out there that we're willing to provide to Mr. Rapke, because there are some teeth in the laws in Tiny, Simcoe. In fact, the only area that doesn't have some kind of a septic inspection program is Blue Mountains and Gray Highlands. I'm fumbling around here, sorry. And so this is something that Morgan and I don't want to push on you and say we have to have it, but it's something that I think in the public interest would be useful to have. And we'd like to work with Mr. Rapke on that. And also it would be great if you could do a simple aeration, just a little bit of money at the beach, and you would probably avoid the bad publicity of the E. coli outbreaks.
So simple aeration is like have a little windmill going around and pumping water, or as you do electrical pump or?
Probably electrical. You'd have to get an expert. Yeah, probably an electrical pump with a decorative fountain. Would really, you can light them at night. I don't know how many it would take or anything else, but you could really turn it into an attraction, right, and yet also disrupt the E. coli. E. coli is not related to what we're doing necessarily. There may be some tertiary relationship, but E. coli is really a result of a bunch of birds coming in and leaving deposits, stagnant water at a certain time of year, heat, things like that. And it can be treated with oxygenation through a fountain or a bubbler And all of a sudden, you wouldn't have the paper reporting the beach is closed at Lake Eugenia.
Reason I said windmill, I know sometimes people have a small pond and they'll have a windmill that aerates it. And I know a lot of people do that just to keep the oxygen and the levels of the water, right? So,
Same principle.
yeah. Other comments, questions? So I need looking for a motion here from councilors in the sense of council receives, I have, it's on here, council receives the Friends of the Lake Eugenia delegation for information, but anybody expanding on that, or is there any comments? While you're thinking about that, I will say that we have a small property on a lake up in Georgian Bay Township, and we just got a letter a month ago that they're doing septic inspections. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's all the lakes in Georgian Bay Township, but I know our lake is being done, and they just said that there'll be a certain time they'll be doing it and coming in and looking at.
If we organized, we could get a contract with an inspection company.
Right.
And set it all up so that we could save money, be very efficient in it in terms of do a whole strip of lots at one time, save some money and get it accomplished with minimal amount of expense to the property owner.
There's probably a certain criteria that they measure for. I guess one is probably observation, right? And from there, and then they do other tests, I'm sure. But I can maybe find out a little bit more about what they do up there. I just got this letter, like I said, a month ago, and they're doing the whole lake.
The real key though, the septic inspection program is a required pumping every 3 years.
Yep.
Is the record.
Yeah, it's the maintenance of it, and the awareness of the maintenance, especially if you're a new property owner, never been used to septic systems and stuff like that, because they will, there is a healthy way of looking after it for sure.
And there's a fallacy out there that said, oh, well, I built my house 10 years ago, so I've got a new septic system. But as I said, the septic system is a dynamic organism. And so you could have depending on the use pattern, the detergent, et cetera, you could have a situation where you've got a new septic system that is not functioning properly without pumping.
Maintains. Well, Councilor Wickens?
Where we're straying from the
Well, it was just,
original presentation here.
well, there was a mention about septic inspections on the presentation. That's why,
Well, it's starting to get a little.
that's why I raised it, because it has been brought up before, and I just in the sense of that, but I was buying some time for a councilor we're thinking in the sense of what you're wishing to come forward with. So Councilor Dubik, you're sort of nodding your head and thinking about something.
I go back to the point about, bringing stakeholders together to work on bigger issues. And so, so I am just, I'm wondering if, we could have, staff like have an initial conversation to see how, possibly we could bring key stakeholders together to address the concern and the, sort of the monitoring of Lake Eugenia. But I do think, it's important to have, all stakeholders working on something like this together. And again, I'm not sure sort of the role we would play in it exactly. And so.
You want that to go back in a report then or some sort, or? No?
Yeah, so I do wonder if there's an opportunity to come together as a community with key stakeholders, so that would be like Curry Sobel and OPG and the cottage associations, because everybody, there's a lot of stakeholders in this. And I think it could be very difficult just kind of do something like this on with just sort of, one sort of just one effort, on the backs of two people. So I'm just sort of floating this out there, and I know it's not clear. And I'm wondering if Tom has, yes.
May I comment? Excuse me.
Please.
Morgan and I are here today for just phase 2, to get phase 2 funded, which will provide the research to allow the stakeholders to come together and talk about fact. We have found that if you don't have the research, that every stakeholder has an opinion, and this is what we've gone through. Oh, you're not sampling enough, you're sampling too much. There's all sorts of erroneous comment made on this situation. So we are very targeted in what we're talking about today. That's get the scientific research that's necessary for phase 2 to talk to the stakeholders. And that's why we've taken great care to make sure that the scientists that we've hired are in communication with Gray Sabo Conservation Authority, which is essentially giving peer review to the data to say, yes, it's legitimate and it's correct so that we can move it forward. We haven't contacted OPG because we really don't know what we want to ask from OPG. There's also going on a review of the lake management plan with OPG, which may be very critical to the control of some of the oxygen levels in the water. And there's some things that are being discussed, but we don't have anything to contribute to that right now until we get the study done. The same is true of Gray Sabo Conservation Authority. They're aware of what we're doing. They know our test methodology, but we can't go to them and say, here's what has to happen until we get the study done. I am in complete agreement with you that once we get the study done, this is a huge issue and it will require all the lake owners, it will require municipality, it will require Gray Sabo, it will require OPG, all of us to sit down and dialogue about it, and probably in a multi-year conversation. It's not something where, because of permitting and fundraising, that we're going to turn the switch and it's going to happen. But none of that can start unless we get phase 2 done. And nobody else has done the work to this point in time, even though there's been 30 years of problem. Nobody has done the detailed work until Morgan and I fundraised and hired Hutchinson. It was all speculation and thoughts that really had no basis. So all we're asking for today, and I think you can tell we're quite impassioned about it, is please don't let this fail when we're 3 months away in sampling from having a complete study.
So your big ask is you need some money.
We need some money. Yeah,
Deputy,
we need a backstop.
sorry, I have CEO and then I have Councillor Alwood. We should go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen, through you to council. There's quite a number of requests in this report. I would suggest that a staff report come back based on the delegation, and then council can have further discussion on the research once it's presented.
Yeah, from that report. Councillor Alwood, thank you, Madam CEO.
Well, thank you, Worship, through you to our delegation and staff. I just wondered if either our CAO or Director of Finance could comment on the mechanism that would see a $30,000 unsecured loan exist, if that's even possible. Thank you.
Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen, through you to Councillor Alwood. That's part of the research that staff would have to undertake. We're not sure of the legalities of loaning money to a private enterprise, whether it's not-for-profit or for-profit. So we would like some time to research the requests. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? So then basically in a nutshell, we needed to receive information and a report to come back. Councillor Alwood.
Obviously, there's a time sensitivity through you, Your Worship. There's a time sensitivity to this, and I just wondered if it's feasible to even get the report in time to address the issue of continuing with the study.
So I guess turnaround time if this was supported, Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen, through you to Councillor Alwood. As the report requests do span various departments, we would have to collaborate across the board. We will try and endeavor to get this back as soon as possible. But given it is summertime and vacation time, I can't promise a specific date, but we will certainly put it on as high priority if council wishes. Thank you.
So just for clarity to the CEO, we have a meeting, or to the clerk, we have a meeting August 2nd, but then are we not meeting after that till September?
No. Second meeting in August.
We are having one? Okay, so because traditionally we have taken a break in August, so there is a second meeting. Okay. So would somebody care to put that on the floor then, in the sense of receiving this and a report to come back in a timely fashion? Councillor Dubik, Councillor Alwood, Madam Clerk, did you capture that then? So basically to receive the delegation today and then a report to come back in a timely fashion. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried.
Thank
So
you.
Stay tuned and thank you for coming. You're welcome. At this point, I think we'll take a break till 12 minutes worth. Or do I say 11:30 or do I say 11:35?
11:30.
All right, it's 11:30. A lot of buzzing going around.
I know.
It's
Well, I just thought we recessed and we were.
We're now live.
All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. It's a little past 11:30. We try to get some reports done here before lunch. So working into section 7 of the agenda, 7.1 surplus tanker. I'm going to pass the chair over to Councillor Lowhead.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. So 7.1, we have a recommendation here that council receive staff report FES 2304, rental of surplus tanker, and that council authorize the loan of the surplus tanker to the Shelburne Fire Department. So can I get a mover seconder to put that on the floor, please? And that's Councillor Allen, Councillor Wickens. So before we have any discussion on this, I think we should probably hear from Chief Wellwood, unless anybody has some burning discussion. Councillor Allen, you want to speak first?
Well, I have a question for the chief. So in the recommendation, it says rental, and then further down it says loan. I'm hoping it's a loan. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, Chief Wellwood, if you could just speak to this a little bit, please.
Through you, Chair, to council, yes, correct, it is a loan. It's the terminology, we just missed fixing it in the report. That we do have a surplus tanker now with the putting the new tanker in service. And then Shelburne Fire Department reached out to me about the same day that their tanker is waiting for service, and they want to know if they could rent our tanker till theirs is back. I just felt it's the neighborly thing to do to a department is let them use our truck while theirs is getting repaired.
And that time frame looks like it's 4 weeks, is that right?
They estimate repairs would be about 4 weeks, correct. It could be a little bit longer, it could be a little bit less, but they're estimating 4 weeks.
Okay, and Deputy Mayor Nielsen?
Thank you, Chair Lowhead. So just confirming. So last council meeting, you came with a great report about how we're going to make more money for the fire department. Today, we have a delegation about how we can make more money for the fire department, but we're just going to loan this out at no cost to Shelburne.
Through you, Chair, to Deputy Mayor, yes.
Fair enough, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, okay, Councillor Alwood.
Thank you, Chair Lowhead. Through you to the chief. And we are setting up an agreement that even though it is a loan, that they be responsible for any liability that we may incur since we own it and are paying insurance on the tanker through the loan period.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Elwood, yes, we will work out something with Shelburne. The CEO and the treasurer and I have talked about what that agreement would look like, but we would look at something. It's not like they're going to be using it like a dump truck where it's going to be on the road 7 days a week kind of thing. It's going to be hopefully never used at all. But yeah, we'll work out some sort of agreement that if anything significant happens to it, that we would work that out.
Okay. Thank you. And yeah, sorry, a follow-up from.
My concern wasn't about the damage to the truck as much as liability if the truck was involved in an incident in an emergency response and our insurance policy had to kick in, but I'm assuming that there would be some arrangement that Shelburne would cover off or have something in their policy to cover that off.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Elwood, I believe the CEO has the answer to that question.
Yeah, and so CEO Govan, please.
Thank you, Chair Lowhead, through you to council. So we did do some research. This request came up just this week, actually, and that's why it was a late addition to the agenda. I was still doing some research this morning. In Ontario, you can't transfer your auto policy, and this equipment is insured under an auto policy. So if an incident did occur, the municipality of Grey Highlands auto policy would respond initially. There is an avenue through non-owned auto, which all municipalities have non-owned auto. So depending on what type of claim came forward, either one of those policies could respond. And the non-auto insurance policy would be under Shelburne. So obviously, we're hoping there won't be any incidents. The agreement going forward would, I suggest, be a letter of intent. So the intent would be if there is a claim that Shelburne would respond in any way possible and work with the municipality to reduce the liability on the municipality of Grey Highlands.
Thank you, CAO Govan. And I saw Councillor Dubik. I thought you have your hand up earlier.
So my question has been answered. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. And then, so, yep, Mr. Mayor.
So under a lease agreement, under auto policy, if we were to lease it to the town of Shelburne, could they get their own insurance because we're the owner of it, but in an agreement of leasing it, like no different than any leasing company, would that not then remove us from the auto policy that they could put their own policy on it?
CAO Govern.
Thank you, Chair Lowhead, through you to the mayor. So in leasing arrangements, you have to transfer title ownership of the vehicle. We're thinking that because it's a short span of time and there is an immediate need from Shelburne, that we would leave the apparatus in the municipality of Grey Highlands name and then try and cover off any liability issues through the letter of intent and through their non-owned auto insurance.
Mr. Mayor, follow up.
I always thought when you lease it, it still stayed in the name of the lease, like the owner. Like I always thought that if you lease something, it was still, or maybe it was under both, like it was still, I don't know. Something tells me that maybe it's changed or whatever. So I guess the question is, what is our liability risk? That's the question I think other councillors asking is there, and I know you're very much on risk, Madam CEO.
Okay, yep, follow up, please.
Thank you, Chair Lowhead, through you to Mayor McQueen and Council. To say there's no risk is not true. There obviously with any decision municipalities make, there is a potential risk. It's whether that risk can be transferred to a third party such as insurance. Generally, these types of situations, I mean, we already have agreements in place, mutual aid agreements with neighboring municipalities where we have each other's back. And, you know, if our fire department in Grey Highlands is responding to a fire outside of its jurisdiction, there's a risk that there could be injury to our firefighters or damage to our equipment. So I would suggest it's no more than that type of risk that we experience in a mutual aid agreement. You know, generally firefighting equipment is not involved in catastrophic accidents or incidents. So, you know, the risk is no more than our own fire department responding to our own fires or our own fire department responding to a mutual aid call.
Okay, so any further discussion on this? No? Okay, so then I suppose we should call the question then. So all in favor? And none opposed, so that carries. Pass the chair back to Mayor McQueen.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lowhead. And then moving on to section 8 of our agenda with regards to transportation and public spaces, I'll pass the chair over to Councillor Wickens for his reports.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. So item 8.1 on your agenda. 2023-07-04 Road Safety Community Partnership Committee meeting unapproved minutes. So we have some recommendations here. The council received the 2023-07-04 Road Safety Community Partnership Committee meeting unapproved minutes for information. Recommendation number 2. The council's directed. Do you want to do them one at a time? All right, then. Can I have a mover and a seconder for recommendation number 1? A mover, Councillor Dubik, seconder, Deputy Mayor Nielsen. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's carried. All right, recommendation number 2. Council directs staff to work with the County of Grey transportation staff to relocate the existing school zone signage at the west end of Maxwell on Grey Road 4 to a new location adjacent to the Maxwell Hall. And that council directs staff to work with the County of Grey transportation staff to place school zone ahead signage in all directions approaching Maxwell on Grey Road 2 and Grey Road 4. And that council directs staff to place school zone ahead signage on Road 45 approaching the intersection of Gray Road 4 and Gray Road 2 in Maxwell. I have a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Lohead, seconder, Councillor Dubik. Mayor McQueen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Where is the sign located now? The school zone sign?
So the flashing light with the 40 kilometer an hour speed sign is at the west end of town, outside the village proper, like about where the Anglican church is.
Right.
So people coming into town on Road 45 and Gray Road 2 from the south, 45 from the north, if they turn east, there's no indication.
I see.
No indication at all that there is a school zone. No indication that there's a 40 kilometer an hour speed zone. So our thought was to move that flashing light. So where all traffic coming from the west and all traffic coming from the east, which there is one there now, would see the flashing light and see the speed zone sign. And then they wanted to, we wanted to place those yellow, I guess, warning signs that there's a school zone ahead from each direction. I believe there are some there now, but they're not where they should be. Well, maybe there's some of them where they should be, but there's some that aren't there at all. So that's our concern. Deputy Mayor Nielsen.
So thank you for that clarity, Chair Wickens. And I'm just trying to confirm. So your goal is to move the committee's goal is to move the flashing light from the west end.
Either move
or have a secondary
it
one.
or have a second one put in it.
So when looking at the Google Street View, there's the school zone signage about, I would say maybe 50 or 100 meters past the Maxwell Hall, showing that there's still a school zone there. I do understand the interest in having, because there is no 40 kilometer signage there when flashing. So I guess the motion is just directing staff to work with the county anyway, so that kind of makes sense.
Yes. Councillor Lohead.
Thank you, Chair Wickens. So the idea here was that, again, there's ways to enter the village of Maxwell where you would be within the school zone and have never seen that there's a school zone sign, right? So they're invisible for all intents and purposes. The idea here was to have those signs moved to closer to the school. Right now, they're quite distant from the school. And so that they'd be essentially unmissable no matter how you enter the village. And also to give warning that you are entering a school zone, so that essentially you'd have a school zone ahead sign where the school zone sign is now, and then the school zone sign later. And that way it's just more clearly marked and essentially unmissable. That's the recommendation.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I think council should give some consideration to the cost of this and who would be paying for it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wickens and CEO Govern. So this was discussed at the road safety meeting. And I guess there's some uncertainty as to exactly who does cover this being a county road, right? The Gray Road 4. I'm also not sure if the school board plays any part in this, so that if this comes from their funding whatsoever. So certainly, I mean, I would also think the council should have some consideration. And I too would like to know where that funding comes from.
Mayor McQueen.
Well, I would being the county, Gray County Road would have the jurisdiction on signage. And I would say that that's where the cost would be from. And I think the main part of what you're trying to raise here is your point of coming out of the intersection and not where it's a school zone. So I think working with the county to, I think bringing their awareness to that, I think it's important. So I think, that, itself sort of speaks to its reason why it's here.
Yeah, that's the main idea. Get the county on board with us. So any other questions or concerns? All those in favor? That's carried. recommendation number 3, the Road Safety Community Partnership Committee received the systematic safety, the principles behind Vision Zero video for information, and that council directs staff to place the video on the road section of the Grey Highlands website and to share the video on the Grey Highlands social media channels. So there was a video that we watched was from Holland, and people thought that there was good information on it and wanted to put it on our website so that other people could watch it. So I have a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Lowhead, Mayor McQueen. Any Councillor Lowhead?
Sure, I'll just give a bit of color. So as Councillor Wicken said, there's a video about Vision Zero and how it's being implemented in the Netherlands. Pretty comprehensive, about 10 minutes long. I'll share the link after this meeting. But good information about the way that the Netherlands and other European countries are dealing with Vision Zero, which is the vision to get down to essentially 0 fatalities on our roads, and really a very novel and different, and I would say, stricter and more forceful approach to what we've been seeing in North America. And so the Road Safety Committee just thought it was good information, and should be available widely to people in Grey Highlands.
Councillor Nielsen? Or Mayor, Deputy Mayor Nielsen?
No
Sorry.
worries. Thanks, Chair Wicken. So you said the video is 10 minutes long and it shows what Holland and the Netherlands is doing already on traffic. I haven't seen the video because I tried to click on the link, but it wouldn't work through the minutes. My only thought then is if we post something on our social media and post something on our website of a level of enforcement or a level of things that we are not doing right now, does that make sense? To promote a level of enforcement that we're not doing or capable of doing at the moment. I don't know what the video actually shows, so that's just my first concern off that.
CEO Government.
Thank you, Chair Wickens, through you to council. So I have seen the Vision Zero safety video, and I think it's important that if we are going to share that kind of content, that it's not something that council has endorsed at this point in time. It is very aggressive when it comes to its approach. So, if council wants to share the video, we would have to have a caveat on any social media that council has not endorsed Vision Zero.
A disclaimer of
Yeah.
sorts, yes. This video does not express the opinions or concerns of the municipality of Grey Highlands. Yes.
So
Yes.
follow up
Deputy
then,
Mayor.
Chair Wickens. So if we do something like that, do you want to make use of the sharing of the video and have a survey attached for people to comment onto whether or not they're for or against? Again, I haven't seen the video, so I don't know what kind of enforcement we're talking about. Are we talking about having, I don't know. So I don't, having not seen the video and having the comments from Councillor Lowhead who's saying the video shows an aggressive form of enforcement that we are not capable of doing, I'm not comfortable sharing the video on our social media to suggest something that, hey, here's some video to see of what's happening around the world. We're not saying anything about it. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. If we wanted to share it with the intent of getting people's opinion onto whether or not that level of enforcement is valid or warranted or people are for it, that makes sense. If we are sharing it to gather information, to share something that we're not doing for the purpose of sharing doesn't make sense to me.
Councillor Lowhead.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wicken. So through you to Deputy Mayor. So I might have misspoke. It's not so much about a level of enforcement. I think what I meant was sort of a forceful approach to changing both culture and infrastructure in particular. So it's a comprehensive sort of look at how to shrink, the number of road fatalities from what it is presently down to 0. So I understand the Deputy Mayor's concerns, but it's more about culture and infrastructure and ideas rather than enforcement per se.
Yeah, it's more about education and stuff. Yes, see you, Gavin.
Thank you, Chair Wickens. Considering some members of council haven't seen the video, perhaps this recommendation could be deferred until they've had an opportunity and then they can comment.
That is an excellent idea. All right then. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I'll just make a motion to defer to the next council meeting. That'll give us time to view,
Okay,
and then I can come back.
all right then. For the seconder, Councillor Dubik. All those in favor? Motion to defer is carried till the next council meeting. All right. Little mouse here. Recommendation number 4. RSCP 2023-10 that the Road Safety Community Partnership Committee received the correspondence from Grey Bruce Health for information. The council approved the addition of Grey Bruce Public Health to the committee in the capacity of an assisting role to the lead department, and that council direct staff to amend the terms of reference to reflect this change. I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor, Deputy Mayor Nielsen and Councillor Lowhead, yes. Councillor Dubé.
Thank you, Chair Wickens. So just a question for clarity. What does assisting role to lead department? What does that mean?
I'm not sure. Clerk Martell.
Thank you. The terms of reference for each of our committees has a lead department that oversees each of the committees. In this case, the lead department for the RSCPC is the transportation department. So Grey Bruce Public Health has a dedicated staff related to transit safety or those kinds of things. And they have requested that they be involved in the committee. So it would be an assistant to our specific internal lead department.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Just a comment. So having read through the minutes of the meeting, it was nice to see that the Grey Bruce Public Health Committee kind of reached out. I was at the Community Safety and Wellbeing meeting where I mentioned that we have a new road safety committee that was created. And it's great that they took the initiative to reach out.
There's too many.
Yeah. So anyways, it was just great to see that they've paying attention to what's going on across Grey and Bruce and jumping at the opportunity to help out in any way they can.
Yes. Any other questions or concerns that Raylene could answer for us? I mean, Clerk Martell, sorry. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay. And recommendation number 5 has been pulled, so we'll go on to 8.2. Bylaw 2023-102, a bylaw to regulate traffic on highways in the municipality of Grey, Highlands, as per resolution on July 5th, 2023, that bylaw 2023-102 being a bylaw to regulate traffic on highways in the municipality of Grey, Highlands be approved. Have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Allen. Deputy Mayor Nielsen. Any questions about that? That was at our last council meeting, was about some stop signs and stuff that are going to put up and remove a yield sign, I believe, at one spot. So I think it's fairly straightforward. Any questions, concerns? All those in favor? That's carried. And I'll be coming back to make a notice of motion later about recommendation number 5. And with that, I would pass the chair back to Mayor McQueen. Thank you.
why I leave it on. Looking at item number 9, corporate administration, there's nothing, no reports there to report on. Seeing it's a few minutes before 12, I'm going to recess for lunch. We'll come back at 12:30. All right, welcome back, everyone. Hope everyone enjoyed their lunch. It was a 2 donut day. Anyway, yeah, we need some cream for the kitchen. All right, moving on. Going to section 10 of our agenda. I'll pass the chair over to Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. Our first item is 10.1, public planning meeting minutes. The council received the June 26, 2023 public planning hearing minutes for information. I just noticed before I get a mover and seconder that in the minutes it's showing Mayor McQueen as being absent, but he declared a pecuniary interest right after that, so he was maybe late. Okay. So do we need to as amended or no? Okay. Okay, true. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Allwood, any discussion? Had 11 files that day. I think that was a record. Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Item 10.2, that report PL 2342 related to planning application Z20 2023 be received, and that bylaw 2023-092 being a bylaw to approve zoning bylaw amendment Z20 2023 be approved. A mover for that, Councillor Dubik, Councillor Lowhead. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. And Mr. Mayor, are you declaring on this one? Okay.
10.3 said 23, sorry, said 23, 20. So this one is that here interest family members.
That report PL 2343 related to planning application Z23 2023 be received, and that bylaw 2023-093 being a bylaw to approve zoning bylaw amendment Z23 2023 be approved. Mover and seconder, Councillor Wickens, Councillor Dubik. Discussion, all those in favor? And that's carried. I'll bring the mayor back. 10.4, that report PL 2344 related to planning application Z24 2023 be received, and that bylaw 2023-094 being a bylaw to approve zoning bylaw amendment Z24 2023 be approved. Councillor Allwood is moving that. Deputy Mayor is seconding. Discussion. All those in favor? That's carried. That 10.5, that report PL 2345 related to planning application Z25 2023 be received, and that bylaw 2023-095 being a bylaw to approve zoning bylaw amendment Z25 2023 be approved. The mover for that, Councillor Lowhead, Councillor Wickens. Discussion. Mayor McQueen.
Yes, in the report. In the report, I gotta get so I can see it here. The very bottom is it talked about comments and questions that were made. And it says Mayor McQueen made a general comment on the need to follow up on previous council's direction to pursue assumption of Harold Bass Parkway. Staff, I lost it.
Staff provided information that a report is in the works and will be coming to council on the history and options in the near future.
Yeah, so on that, I have some information that was sent to me on those motions. I can maybe forward it. Just there's a lot of motions that were in 2000. Maybe you already have it, but anyway, I just wanted to point that out that it was something that was raised, and that's all I wanted.
You'll send that to the clerk. Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. 10.6, that report PL 2346 related to planning application Z26 2023 be received, and that bylaw 2023-096 being a bylaw to approve zoning bylaw amendment Z26 2023 be approved. Mover for that, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Wickens. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. 10.7, that report PL 2347 related to planning application Z27 2023 be received, and that bylaw 2023-097 being a bylaw to approve zoning bylaw amendment Z27 2023 be approved. The mover for that one, Councillor Dubik, and maybe I'll second that one. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Let's carry. For no reason other than I can.
They've been waiting a long
I
time.
have 10.8. That report PL 23.48 related to planning application Z28 2023 be received, and that bylaw 2023-098 being a bylaw to approve zoning bylaw amendment Z28 2023 be approved. Councillor Allwood and Councillor Dubik, any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. 10.9, that report PL 2349 related to planning application Z29 2023 be received, and that bylaw 2023-099 being a bylaw to approve zoning bylaw amendment Z29 2023 be approved. Mover for that, Councillor Dubik, and Councillor Wickens will second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. 10.10, that report PL 2350 related to planning application Z30 2023 be received, and that bylaw 2023-100 being a bylaw to approve zoning bylaw amendment Z30 2023 be approved. Motion to accept that. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Dubik. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's carried. 10.11, that report PL 2351 related to planning application Z31 2023 be received, and that bylaw 2023-101 being a bylaw to approve zoning bylaw amendment Z31 2023 be approved. Mover, Mr. Mayor. Seconder, Councillor Allwood. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, this one's a little bit different. The planning report PL 2352 related to planning application SUBD 01 2022 GH1 Developments be received, and that council recommend that Grey County Council approve SUBD 01 2022 GH1 Developments subject to the conditions contained in Schedule A of report PL 2352, in addition to any other conditions that the county deems necessary. So mover and seconder to get this on the floor, Councillor Allwood and Councillor Dubik. Okay, discussion on this one. Mayor McQueen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on page 5 of the report, it talks about upgrades to Lagoon Driveway. I don't know, our Director Moyer is on the line and is working out the agreement with Chapman's Ice Cream, but he goes into the second paragraph under number 3. It talks about manholes and the moving them to the side. So I just wondered if Director Moyer is able to speak to that issue in the sense of being gravel and then moving them off to the side because it was concerns about snowplows cause damage on these manholes. So they talked about moving them off to the side, but I don't know if Director Moyer is available or not, just to his 2 cents worth.
The recommendation was to pave that
Right.
and GH1 to pay a portion.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Okay, we'll go to Clerk Martel.
Thank you. So that number 3 that you're referencing here is outstanding items that we are addressing after the draft plan approval. So the discussions and the consideration for that item are still ongoing, and there will be a report coming to council about how that plays out going forward, but it doesn't affect the draft plan approval. It's just something that we wanted to let council know that these are the outstanding items that don't affect draft plan approval, but that will be coming at a later time.
So I was going to make that comment that this is recommending that the county support the subdivision, approve the subdivision. And then Grey Highlands, there'll be a subdivision agreement, right? Which is different than the subdivision approval. And all these items that are outstanding will be addressed in that agreement, correct?
Yes and no, that is correct. So once the county gives draft plan approval, the number of the conditions are there. One of them would be that they enter into a subdivision agreement with the municipality. Once the municipality enters into the subdivision agreement, they will address a number of the items that are listed here in this report. However, some of the items that are listed here are external even to the subdivision agreement and will be coming for specific council direction. This one will probably be listed in the subdivision agreement, this one specifically. But yeah, that is coming at a later date. This is just the initial draft plan approval so they can move forward with the subdivision agreement and all the later things that have to happen.
Okay. Mayor McQueen.
well, at some point, we will have to have an update on all that stuff, and it talks about, you know, the easements and the right of ways and a lot of different things in this report. So I understand that it's the county's decision to move that. And why would you have the conversation if it didn't get approved, obviously? But at some point, we're going to need to have some discussions on that, or at least have that report come forward. Because I know with that, you know, the easement over Chapman's property, that was here in front of council back when they purchased that property, but they, in the agreement, I think I mentioned this to the CEO, they do have the ability to move that easement if they so wish. So once it's fixed, right? So anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I did get a mover and seconder for that one, didn't I? Yes, okay. So all those in favor? That's carried. Okay, that ends my roll.
Thank you, Chair Allen. Moving on to our next item on our agenda. It goes to section 11, Building and Economic and Community Development, chaired by Deputy Mayor, but there are no items. Sorry for that. Number 12, Environmental Services. This is chaired by Councillor Dubik. And I'll pass the chair over to you. And this may capture that delegation this morning as well. I think that's what we talked about, adding that delegation in that report that came with regards. But email, but the individual did speak this morning through open forum as well. So I'll pass that over to you, Chair Dubik.
Great, thank you, Mayor McQueen. So we'll first take the report as a separate item. So the council received staff report ENV.23.19 regarding the curbside collection update for information. Could I get a mover and a seconder to put that on the table? So Councillor Wickens and seconded by Councillor Lowhead. So the report is in front of you. This is after 6 months of the curbside collection being in play. It started in January 1st. As we all know, the report lays out a few of the statistics around some of the data around the number of recycling carts and waste carts that have been distributed. It provides the tonnage as well for the first 6 months. The financial impact is not yet available for the first 6 months, as we just had received the June data, you know, as the report was being submitted. So the financial information will be subsequently provided in a financial report in the next quarter. Are there any questions or comments for discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Allen.
Thank you. Just looking at the numbers, and I know you can't, just because we're comparing 22 to 23, it doesn't mean they're hard, fast numbers. There could have been that variation anyways, but it's looking like there's less waste, more waste being collected at the curbside than the previous year. And then if you go down to the next chart, transfers from the sites is less. So it's meaning that we're paying more to have the curbside picked up and less revenue at the landfill. It'll be interesting to see if that trend continues. Thank you.
So it is for the first 6 months. So we probably need to see a little bit more from that, but that is correct. We do also have to remember that in terms of the size of the carts, the garbage, the waste cart itself is a little roomier than the previous sort of bag of garbage bag that was allowed in the previous program. So it does allow, so our new program does allow for more room to cram in some more waste. Councillor Allen.
On the positive side is it's going away from our landfills. So we're losing revenue, but we're gaining capacity.
So correct. So this is all being diverted to the waste management's landfill. So it is being diverted from our land sites. And also we don't necessarily have to think about it as revenues per se, as we do, it's more like a cost recovery of, when we think about sort of our landfills and the charges. CEO Govan.
Thank you, Chair Dubik. I just want to point out too, another factor into this is the shared landfill at Markdale. The cost ratio will change because Grey Highlands is putting less waste in the landfill. Therefore, the distribution of the expenses to run the landfill will be more even between Chatsworth and Grey Highlands. So that might offset some of the loss in revenue.
Yes, so thank you for that. We do pay those variable costs based on tonnage and services used. So it is a variable based on usage between the two municipalities. Councillor Allwood.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I mean, the waste pickup now is bi-weekly. Before we had weekly pickup, so those smaller waste bins are probably not bigger than two weeks worth of curbside bags, but we did make them smaller on purpose to kind of encourage recycling. The recycling bins are bigger and it seems to be working. Thank you.
Mayor McQueen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for the report to this date. There are the things that have been pointed out on here as we went through last winter, and a number of group areas that were having the bins, and there was issues. So hopefully that report maybe addresses some of the points like freeze and locks, and maybe they need to be winter locks and different things, and maybe there needs to be a bit more on regulation around people leaving extra garbage around them that not supposed to. I see there was a chair or furniture or something stuffed in one, but the other one and the bigger issue is we all know is the non-permanent residents. And has been some suggestions of how to work forward on that. And so I look forward to some ideas and discussion. I almost think that might need to come to a committee of the whole meeting to have that conversation, because there could be more depth and discussion than 20 minutes at this level. But anyway, we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Yes, so the environmental services team is working on some options that will be coming to council. And so that will be a good discussion. Any further comments? Great, so we'll take that to a vote. Those in favor? Those opposed? So that is carried. Thank you. Now we are going to our other item with regards to our garbage tags. And so from this morning, we heard, are we taking that item for the in this section? Yes. Clerk Martel.
Sorry, yes, we have included that email as an item for consideration during this item because it was related to that item. I will just note that similarly to what Councillor Wickens had mentioned earlier, this item was also a previously considered date was resolved by this council. So there would have to be a notice of motion provided to if there's any consideration for changing that date.
Okay, great. Thank you. So what we heard from this morning was a request to extend the use of garbage tags at our landfill sites. So the official date has already passed. So they're currently not being accepted. And so the request is to extend the usage of those garbage tags. So I'll open up the floor for discussion. Councillor Alton.
Thank you. The request was either to extend the date or to issue a refund. So I'm wondering if the discussion goes to issuing a refund, can that motion be made today? Because it is a different, it's not based on a previous decision unless we did decide that we would not be giving refunds. And I can't remember back whether that was discussed or not. Yes.
Is that a question for Clerk Martel? Okay. Clerk
Sorry,
Martel.
can you repeat the question?
If we decided to offer a refund for unused bag tags, could that be dealt with today without amending or without, what's the word? Suspending.
Yes, just if you give me just one moment, I just have to look at the actual wording from the resolution on December 7th.
So first to Councillor Lowhead and then to the mayor.
Thank you, Chair. So just while we're looking this up here, I mean, I guess in my mind, I don't really see much of an issue in simply extending the timeline or eliminating it altogether. I know, in Ontario many years ago, the consumer watchdog removed any expiration date on gift certificates. Made a lot of sense to me. I don't see this as being a whole lot different than that. My 2 cents.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I would concur. I think that either we waive our procedure bylaw and make a decision today. My concern is as we get into August 2nd, it's getting further and further away from the June 30th, July 1st. I think Councillor Head makes a really good point in the sense of that decision. And it was also, I think, with air miles too. Air miles was also another one that you didn't lose it. And there was a, court and they reversed that as well. So I think this is something that is of timing. And I think we need to make a decision today, and I would move that we waive the procedure bylaw. Takes 2/3 majority to make a decision today on that we extend it, or we just continue to allow it.
Okay, so any further discussion on this point? Councillor Wickens.
So I wasn't at the December 7th meeting. I just wonder what the rationality was for cutting them off in 6 months. Maybe
Deputy Mayor.
Part of thank you, Chair Dubick. Part of the discussion was the idea that we wouldn't be selling the tags anymore. The idea was to encourage, with the increased size of the bins, with the changing of the collections, that they wouldn't hopefully be as needed. There was trying to get rid of the usage of them and then switch over to a simpler pay when you come. It's also a weight system versus price per bag. We're trying to more be accurate in our calculations of what your costing is. So when residents are coming, they're being weighed for their amount of garbage rather than just being a straight tag for one bag kind of situation. So there was a few different things that I recall from the conversation as to why we were trying to get rid of them.
Councillor Lowhead.
Sure, thank you. And I think I might just add to that, that I think the assumption was that all of the tags would be used up by now. And I think it was just sort of a goodwill assumption. But now hearing from constituents that they haven't been used and that it's a financial strain, I think just adds new information.
Mr. Mayor.
And also thinking back, what possibly could be the solutions for the non-residents may be tags. Because if they can't come, they may, it's at their peril, that we may go back to that option of having to offer them tags in order to use their, and because there is the part of that is if they can't get collection during the week, they pay taxes. How do I still get rid of my garbage? So just leaving that open-ended at this point too. I don't know any other solution unless you have a punch card or something, but that's still regulated. I mean, we've had tags around before Great Highlands even. Or we used to send out tags. People used to pick up tags, not send them out to pick them up, and that was part of how you had garbage allotment is 52 or 54 tags, and they got cut back to 26 tags, I think, or something like that. So tags are not on it's not uncommon that we've used tags in the past. So
Okay, thank you. So given that we are already into July, time is sort of ticking to be able to extend this. Just for clarification of process, I will look to maybe Clerk Martel if he can assist. Is there a way that we could pass a motion today without going through notice of motion?
So I did look at the wording from the December 7th meeting where the motion was considered. And it does specifically just say to the deadline for usage of the tag. It does not speak to the refund for garbage tags. So if council was wishing to go down the line of providing a refund for anybody that had existing ones, that would be permitted without a reconsideration because it's not something that has already been decided on by council.
Councillor Alwood.
Thank you, Chair Dubick. Through you to the clerk. The mayor mentioned suspending our procedural bylaw to allow for us to reconsider the deadline. Is that an option for council today?
Thank you. Through you, Chair Dubick, to Councillor Alwood. Yes, council always has the ability to waive the requirements of the procedure bylaw by passing a motion to waive that provision with 2/3 vote.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if staff was looking at a cutoff time for the use of the tags, whether we'd be better to just offer a refund and not that they can go on, because they could go on for years. Somebody in 5 years from now could find them in a drawer and still use them. And I think at some point we need to have it cut off so that everything that's going into the landfill is being paid for. My thought is this is cleaner. Just offer a refund for unused tags. And I don't know if I even want to say have a deadline as far as asking for a refund, but I think we do need to kind of draw the line somewhere. My thought.
Mr. Mayor.
Well, to get a refund, you'd have to come to the office during business days. And to get a refund, I don't think we want our staff at the landfill dealing with handing out funds and receipts and stuff like that. I want to move, I'll move a motion that we suspend our procedure bylaw to make a decision that there is no deadline on the usage of garbage takes. I think we may go that route for who knows what the options come back. So for the non-residents, I think that's that to my mind on that part. I don't think there's any other way how you people that are non-residents that are during weekends, how else are we going to deal with their garbage when they come to the landfill? So anyway, I move that motion.
Yes, so there could be other options to, to manage that. But yes, but we'll just speak directly to the issue at hand. And we'll go to, Councillor Wiggins first.
I'm just seconding the motion that Mayor McQueen made. I believe that's the right procedure. Do we have to have a vote?
I'll take care of that.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I'm overstepping.
We're on the chair here. Thank you for your assistance. Okay, so we do have a motion and a second, and it's been seconded.
So for clarity, do we need a motion to suspend the procedure bylaw first, or can it be all one motion? That's why I'm wish to suspend it.
So we need two motions.
Okay,
so your first motion was to suspend.
Yeah.
And that is what you seconded, Councillor Wiggins?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And so we'll take that to a vote, if you're good with that. Okay, those in favor?
I'm good.
Okay, so that is carried unanimously. Okay, and now to the next motion, Mr. Mayor.
So at this point, I move a motion that we remove the deadline to the usage of the bag tags.
So just period.
It can be changed at a later date if that changes, but I think the fact is, yes, it could be, but probably through time, I don't see that as a concern, but I think there's a valid. Okay, so I guess I should wait till I get a second first on that before I speak to it.
Okay, so one moment. We do have Clerk Martell's hand raised, so let's listen to that.
Thank you. So procedurally, you're moving to reconsider. So the motion that was passed on December 7th would be back on the floor for consideration. So that motion would be that council approve yellow bag tags being accepted at all 3 waste and diversion sites for bagged household waste from January 1st, 2023 until June 30th in lieu of current fees and charges. So that motion will be placed back on the table, and then there would have to be an amendment to that motion.
Okay, Mayor McQueen.
Make an amendment to the December 7th motion that we remove the expiry date of June 30th. What am I doing wrong now?
Sorry, Clerk Martell.
Thank you. So we've moved the motion to allow for reconsideration to happen at this time. The motion is on the floor. We need a mover and a seconder, and then somebody would move an amendment.
Why would anybody want to put that back on the floor?
Because that main motion has to go back on the floor.
Okay, so a mover, Deputy Mayor, and then a seconder, Councillor Allwood. Okay. And now, okay, so now we are back to the motion. Okay, so Mayor McQueen. Yes.
Make an amendment to the motion that's on the floor.
Yes.
That the June 30th deadline be removed from the motion, that the bag tags will be honored at all 3 landfills, however you want to word that. Does that make sense? Remove the deadline of the June 30th, which is already expired, which is already passed. Right.
Councillor Allwood, are you seconding that?
I am seconding that, Chair Dubik.
Councillor Lohead?
Sure, just for my own curiosity, and maybe nobody here can answer this question, but I'm wondering if we have even a rough idea of how many of those tags are out there in the wild. I mean, is it 100? Is it 1,000? Are we going to, as Councillor Allen suggests, be seeing these 10 years from now? And I suppose, does that matter? Maybe there is no answer to that question, or maybe we're just going to find out.
So I too wonder if even if it is possible to even put, say, a timeline of, extended for another year, just to kind of keep it clean. That is also another option, but I will leave it at that. Deputy Mayor Nielsen.
Thank you, Chair Dubik. Councillor Allen's point earlier and kind of to what Councillor Lowe has just alluding to, having a clear cutoff date, I think is a good thing. To Mayor McQueen's comments, I think those are two different conversations, whether or not we extend the bag tags for another year or 18 months, and whether or not the bag tags is an option for trying to solve the weekend or crisis, I think are two different things, because if we do approve bag tags for that situation, we probably want to have a different color on them, so that way it's specific to certain residents and stuff. So that's a different conversation. I think today we're trying to decide whether or not the tags that are out there in existence, should they have a deadline or not? And I think there does need to be kind of a clear consensus. You might have a situation 5 years from now where somebody has their bags, and in the meantime, that fee has significantly increased, and somebody's going to drop a tag to drop off a 50-pound bag of garbage that would have cost a lot more, and trying to recoup our costs. I do think, to what the delegation said today in terms of what people are concerned with, I would be surprised if somebody bought more than a year's worth of tags at one time. So even if we went an extension of 1 year, so change the date to the June of 2024, would make a lot more sense, because that gives 18 months after we stop the program to utilize the tags. And I think that there's some bit more clarity to that if we had the amendment to the motion. However, I'm not making that amendment. The amendment is currently on the floor. Just my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor.
I appreciate my comments from the deputy mayor, but when these tags were purchased, there was no expiry date on them. If you go over across the Stevens restaurant and take out a gift certificate, unless it says used by a certain time, you pay cash for them, there's no expire. The disclosure to when these tags were purchased were like, they're like tender. I think we get into a slippery slope just, and as they get used up, fallen, get thrown out, whatever, just keep it. We've had bag tags forever, even before amalgamation. So I just keep it clean.
Okay. Councillor Allen.
I don't know where we are as far as amendments or an amendment to the amendment, but I'm going to suggest that we, as Deputy Mayor said, extend the date to June 30th of 2024 with an option of getting a refund for unused tags. So that cuts it off a certain time, but allows, if anybody does have some, to get a refund. Within, do we want to put that within that same time frame, or any time? I guess the refund should be any time. That gives an option for both. Use them or turn them in. I will make that amendment or amendment to the amendment.
Actually at this, okay.
I guess there wasn't a seconder for the first amendment, so.
There was.
Oh, yes, there
yeah.
was.
Councillor Allwood did second that. Okay, so I've lost track now. I do. Yes, this isn't, so this conversation has taken, a few kind of twists and turns. I will, whenever Clerk Martel has a moment, maybe if Clerk Martel can guide me on what I have to say next.
So the main motion on the floor through you, Chair, is that the council approve yellow bag tags being accepted at all 3 waste and diversion sites for bagged household waste from January 1st, 2023 until June 30th, 2023 in lieu of current fees and charges. The amendment proposed by Mayor McQueen and seconded by Councillor Allwood is that the main motion be amended by removing the words until June 30th, 2023. So that's the amendment and the motion that's on the floor currently. So any amendment to the amendment would have to be just amending that removal of until June 30th. If there was additional amendments that wanted to happen, consideration for this amendment should happen first, unless there's additional removals that are happening. But the motion that's on the floor currently is that the main motion be amended by removing the words until June 30th, 2023. And that's the only thing that should be under consideration at the present time. When you go back to the main motion as amended, then there could be additional amendments at that point.
Okay, so then what I'll do is we'll just take a vote on this one. If it carries or doesn't carry, then we can re-amend. Mayor McQueen.
Just a couple comments about the motion to the amendment. This is not the first comment I've heard about bag tags. I think maybe others have heard other comments about bag tags and not the ability to continue to use them. I think it's something that we spent more time on this than we can spend on a subdivision agreement. That's a lot of other things. But anyway, I think this is just something that keeps it clean, move on. I don't see the big issue with this. So just let them use the tags. They're used up, then they're gone. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you for that. So the amendment is on the floor. It's been moved by Mayor McQueen. It was seconded by Councillor Allwood. So we'll any final comments? If not, we'll take that to a vote. Those in favor? So 1, 2, 3. Those opposed? No, there's 2. Okay, so that carries. So now we have the motion as amended. So we'll take that to a vote. Those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, and so that is carried. So for those that have been trying to follow along, to recap what we have agreed to. So maybe Clerk Martel, if you can just read that out as a final statement. Thank you.
Thank you. The main motion as amended that was just carried by council is that council approve yellow bag tags being accepted at all 3 waste and diversion sites for bagged household waste from January 1st, 2023 in lieu of the current fees and charges.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. So anybody who does have bag tags can continue to use them. Mayor McQueen.
Just point of note, it did say in that motion, yellow bag tags. I think it was some mention that there was different color tags or different, it's yellow. You can only
Okay,
use yellow.
Okay, so thank you. So they are, yeah, so the yellow bag tags will continue to be accepted at our landfill sites forever. Okay, thank you. So that is the end of my portion, and back to Mayor McQueen.
Thank you, Chair Dubik, for doing your portion of our council agenda. So moving on to section 13, finance. There are a number of reports here under that. So I'll move it over for Councillor Allwood to chair this section.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. Item 13.1, the mid-year financial update for 2023. And the motion is that council receive FIN 23.14 mid-year financial update for information. Can I have a mover and a seconder to get that on the floor? Moved by Councillor Wickens, seconded by Councillor Dubik. Any discussion? I'd like to compliment our finance staff and Director of Finance for a comprehensive midterm report, and a lot of information in there. The embedded report, the operation consolidated operating detail and capital expenses, and the explanation of capital expenditures that have been approved by council to date are all in that report for both council and the public's information. Any further discussion on that report? Seeing none, all those in favor of receiving that report? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. The next item would be 13.2, a request for development charges credit for Center Point South. And the motion is that council receive report FIN 23.12 for information, and that council approve providing a credit for works as it relates to the Parks and Recreation portion of the development charges for the units in Center Point South subdivision agreement, and that council authorize staff to enter into an agreement with the developer regarding the playground installation, conveyance to the municipality, and associated BC credit. Can I have a mover and a seconder to get that on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Dubik, seconded by Councillor Lowhead. Discussion. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chair Elwood. Just a question for understanding in terms of how this is working. So we charge development charges to anybody who's building anything throughout the municipality for the purposes of collecting funds that we can later use to produce X, Y, Z within our development charge schedule. So if somebody's doing work like a subdivision does work and builds the roads, but we still collect development charges for the future maintenance of those roads. If somebody's building a lot of other things, we'd still collect development charges. Can you just help me understand why in this situation, because they're building the park, we wouldn't still want to collect parkland DC charges for the purposes of building a park later on in Grey Highlands?
I'll go to Director McCarthy for the answer to that.
Thank you. Through you. So just to clarify, parkland dedication is separate from this Parks and Rec charge. So through the prior agreement, they are required to donate a portion of land. Now on this land, they're proposing to build a playground. Instead of the municipality building that playground, which is identified in our development charges study, the subdivider is going to do that service if council so agrees, so that we won't need to do that work. So essentially it's instead of them paying the development charges, then they're going to be paying for the cost of the park instead. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Director McCarthy. Any follow-up, Deputy Mayor?
Just a separate question then. In terms of discussions with the developer on the type of playground equipment and type of services being provided, then we have identified different things. So accessibility and types of materials and such like that through our own purposes. Is there conversations between staff and the developer in terms of what their park will look like in comparison to the quality, I would say, that Grey Highlands is trying to do throughout our parks within Grey Highlands?
Director McCarthy.
Yes, likely the CAO or planning staff would be better able to speak to that. But there will be an agreement entered into after council approves it, and there will be oversight and formal approval of the park itself.
Attached to the report is a proposed park layout and facilities. There's also a cost estimate in there, which is basically the credit that we'd be approving today. Madam CEO, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to the treasurer's comments. The plans did go forward through to Grey County Accessibility Committee to ensure that the structure was accessible. And I believe they're looking at doing something that's age friendly as well. But we'll definitely be working with them to ensure that it is obviously approved standards and acceptable for the municipality.
Thank you for that, Madam CEO. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Well, thank you, Chair. I would just from the comment you just made about the cost estimate and the amount of credit that they're looking to maintain. What is is the credit they're looking for equal to the amount of DC charges that would have been charged to the project? Or are we giving them an extended DC charge credit against other charges that would have been collected? That might have been confusing, but I can tell from your eyes that you understood what I meant.
I'll go to our Director of Finance for that, Director McCarthy.
So the amount of the credit cannot exceed the value of the work, and the value of the work has to be reasonable as agreed to by the municipality. So in this instance, it's anticipated that the credit will be fully utilized within the first phase. So after it does reach that total $500,000 estimated amount, they will be required to pay the Parks and Rec portion of the development charge after that point in time.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Dubik.
Thank you, Chair Allwood. So just in terms of clarification for process. So as we, vote on this, would this come back again to council, or once we give the agreement, staff will work with the developers to, to complete the design and implement, or would it still come back to council at some point in terms of like a final design?
Director McCarthy.
The way the current recommendation reads is that council is authorizing staff to enter into that agreement, which includes the final design of the playground as well.
Any further questions or discussion on this item? Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. So I guess if I'm reading this correctly, the amount of credit, the gross project cost, and the development charges, total DC eligible, they're all equal, right? So the idea being that essentially there's going to be no, discount or money lost on our end. Getting a nod from the treasurer. I guess what I'm wondering here is, is this common and what's in it for the developer? I mean, why would a developer choose to take this on themselves rather than simply, if the cost is going to be identical, why not pass that on to the municipality and do it that way?
CEO Govan, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Alwood, through you to Councillor Lowhead. So it is common in municipal work. Obviously, the developer has equipment on site. They are sourcing this type of equipment for, multitude of subdivisions. What's in it for the developer? What they want to do is develop the park first as an attraction and a marketing tool, I guess, to kind of increase the sales. Like, this is how the park is going to look. This is what you'll have access to. And, they're in the business of development. We're not. So it's easier for them to transfer, or us to transfer the costs and have the developer do this in consultation with staff.
Any follow-up, Councillor Lloyd? Thank you for that explanation, CEO Govan. Any further discussion? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does this require any like 3 bids or anything like that on the equipment? Maybe I'm just right out of it, but looking at some of the prices there, standard picnic table, $4,500, and bike rack, $1,500, waste receptacle, $2,750. I know anything municipal or any government is more, but this just seems outrageous.
Treasurer McCarthy, or?
Yes, through you. So our mechanism here is that the municipality does have to agree to the costs being reasonable. So at this point, we haven't fully analyzed the quote or spoken directly with the developer regarding it, but anticipate that will be done so before any agreement is entered into.
Any follow-up, Councillor Allen?
I'm just wondering if we're agreeing to this, if we're agreeing to the quote that's been given, because I read in there somewhere about the most recent quote, and are we agreeing to this dollar figure, or will this, as Councillor Dubik said, will this come back? I think it was Councillor Dubik. Will this come back to council with the final numbers at some point?
If I may speak to that initially as chair, but the way the motion reads is that we're authorizing staff to enter into that agreement. So if staff agrees that it's a reasonable agreement, it would move ahead if we authorize this motion. But I'll go to Director McCarthy, who's raised her hand.
Yes, that's correct. And I'll say that at this point, staff hasn't agreed that it is reasonable. That step has yet to be completed or analyzed by staff, and that I'm not the right person to do that.
The information in the report, though, does mention the portion of the DC charges. So you've got some comparison to the 91 units that are being built and what those DC charges that would be applicable to Parks and Rec are. And we have an initial estimate of what those costs might be. So they're more or less in alignment. It's just staff agreeing that it's reasonable, and council authorizing staff to go ahead and make that agreement. Yeah. Any concerns, Councillor Allen? I see you're still smiling. Hopefully it's a good smile.
Yes, I still have concerns, but it's just with the dollar figures, and it's been estimated by an engineering firm, which I think we all know what happens to prices when engineers get involved, but I'll trust that staff will look at this and decide if it's not the right route to go, that it might come back to council for further direction. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Lowhead.
Sure, thank you. And I guess to further to Councillor Allen's point here, I mean, it's concerns about the reasonableness of this quote. And I guess what I was getting at earlier with my question, what's in it for the developer? And then I guess to sort of develop that idea a little further, I mean, question being, are they essentially over quoting and overcharging, right? And, getting away with building less for the same amount of money. And so I guess what I'm hoping here is that the test of reasonableness from staff will include, a pretty robust and rigorous, testing against this, other quotes from other installers, other manufacturers, to make sure that we're getting, a park worth the money that we're trading in lieu.
That was more of a comment than a question.
Yeah,
but,
that was a comment.
Okay. Director McCarthy, go ahead.
Yes, we will be doing so. And just to reiterate as well, this is an estimate. The final will be based on actual costs, and I don't think the developer has any incentive to inflate those costs. I assume they'll be trying to get the best value as well.
Okay, I've got Mayor McQueen and then Councillor Dubik. Go ahead, Mayor McQueen.
Thank you. I would hope that we got good value for what is being provided or being offered. I think, was it a year ago, we had a delegation with regards to the Maxwell Park. And I think they were quoting something like 250,000 for not very much. And that wasn't for site alterations and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just like anything to do with park stuff. It's like gold. It just seems very expensive, but I guess it's guaranteed for a period of time. It's safe for our children, and there's a number of things that come into play. But I hear what Councillor Allen is saying. It just seems like a lot of money, but it just seems like anything in the park business needs to be expensive, probably because it has to stand up to the test of liability from the general public using it. It's probably been a process where, from trial and error, I think we all, as kids, played on equipment that I know one time I hit my chin on a slide and split my chin open, and it was tin and steel and all that kind of stuff. And look at even ourselves with the requirements we've had to do with special type of softening area. We should have had that maybe in Durham the other day there. But anyway, there's a lot of stuff that's around it. It just seems to be some liability issues, but I would hope that there's good value that's come out of this.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. Councillor Dubik, you had raised your hand.
So just a quick comment. Like I have the confidence in staff to, ensure that they're overseeing good value in the review of this and working with the developer. And, we all live in the same community. So I think, we will move in good faith with good supervision by our staff. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 13.3, reserve policy. The council receive FIN 23.13 for information, and that council direct the treasurer to draft a reserve policy for council consideration, and that council direct the treasurer to provide recommendations for reorganization or consolidation of reserves where applicable. Can I get a mover and a seconder to put that motion on the floor, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Wickens. Discussion. Mayor McQueen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I question why we wanted to consolidate it. I know in the past, we've had community groups come in to this council and said, there's X number of dollars in something, where is it gone? And we've hunted and searched, and that goes back to the day that there was a treasurer named Michelle. If anybody remembers Michelle? Councillor Allen, do you remember Michelle? Going back a long time, but I remember a community group saying, where's that? And they had to do a lot of research and stuff, consolidating, but maybe list under there. I don't know, but just, I think we have to be very careful on reserves. And if you get community groups doing stuff and they're, under the community group, that's under as we move forward with putting councillors on those committees that it could be out there, they may choose to have the municipality have a reserve or a bank account or have it in that site. So I think I just sort of question it in a sense, and maybe there's an explanation why, but I think we have to be so careful with community group money, and maybe there's other parts, but I mean, I look on here, Markdale Hydro money, didn't realize there was that much on there. We go through all this during the budget point. Yeah, maybe there needs to be some collapsing of certain reserves that we can put into capital projects. Maybe there is something there. But there's a Stoddard Hall money, the 30,520 that we had from a delegation at the last council meeting. So not sure what the Graham estate, I would like to see maybe a little bit of an explanation what all these reserves are. Maybe that's part of your report. Anyway, just, I see there's 2 Cape McMillans, one for the library, or maybe it's down into one, there's a blank, and then there's $855. I think maybe part of that hopefully would be an explanation of what all these reserves mean. And, and can it be consolidated? Maybe. It's just, we have to be careful because I've been on council where individuals were questioning where reserves went and they got rolled in and then they got spent, and somebody comes back and says, well, where's that money we raised 30 years ago? Anyway, that is something that I've experienced.
Thank you, Member Green. In the report there, it does speak specifically to specific reserves. And I think those are the type of reserves you're referring to, and that the historical nature of those reserves, some research and investigation will be needed to confirm the source and purpose of each of those reserves. So that's the area that's going to take the most work. It does make sense to have a reserve policy, and I agree with the mayor, and I think the report confirms that the specific reserves will take a bit of investigating, and at the end of the day, council and staff will have a clear understanding of what they are and how that money should be spent, whether they're specific or obligate. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Whether they are general or have special obligations. I'll stop talking there. Councilor Dubik.
Just a quick comment. I just wanted to say that this is, I think this is a very good step forward to continuing our strengthening our financial processes and putting policies around our reserves. So this is a good step forward. So thank you.
Any further discussion? Treasurer McCarthy.
Yes, through you to Mayor McQueen. I do agree with you, Mayor McQueen. I think it's really important that we are tracking every single dollar that goes into the reserve funds and ensuring we know what funds are committed. The purpose of this policy will be to do exactly that, so that we do have a formal outline of exactly the purpose of the reserve. So right now we don't have that, and it takes a lot of research in some instances to find that information. So that's why we do want this reserve policy in place.
Thank you, Treasurer McCarthy. I'll go to Councilor Lowhead.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Allwood. So to Treasurer McCarthy, do any of our reserve funds, do they accumulate interest at different rates? That's the question.
So all of the reserve funds accumulate at the same rate, though we do have different accounts for investment purposes, but they all earn at the same rate.
Thank you, Director McCarthy. Any further questions? Discussion, Mayor McQueen?
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I look forward to the report. I do look forward to the report. I just look at it as an example, the Euphrasia Reserve that dates back before even Grey Highlands, because we've heard that. And this is where I'm saying the community group, we knows it's there, depending on what it is. And all of a sudden we get reminded, I see a Eugenia ballpark for $227. Well, see, maybe that would be either be spent or, but I think a bigger part is why was the reserve created and for what purpose? And I think that's, understandably, you're going to go through that research, and I'm sure you're going to have lots of fun because there's a lot of stuff, but as time goes on, the history, you lose that history, but, and I guess also in the sense of going forward, the process of creating a new reserve. So maybe the Priceville Community Group wants to have a reserve to build funds to do that ramp. So are we building a reserve for that? Like, I don't know. Sometimes they choose to use the municipality because they know that they can trust the municipality, and it goes into that. And also sometimes you get donations that come to the municipality. We write a tax receipt and they go into certain reserves as well. So I'll just leave it at that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. CEO Govan.
Thank you, Chair Allwood. Just maybe for the benefit of residents or the community. The nature of the business of municipalities is ongoing, and a reserve can be established at any point in time. And because of that, some of our historical creation of reserves is in paper format. What this policy will do is outline the definition of the reserve and why it was created, and put it all into one policy document. And then anytime we create a new reserve, we could add it to this policy. So all of the information on reserves is in one space for everybody to look at. Right now, to research individual reserves, like Mayor McQueen said, they could go back 30 years, which, you know, we may not even be able to find information on that reserve. So there may be some judgment that council needs to exercise in order to bring forward what the reserve intent is. And yeah, so it just kind of brings it all into one space. So it helps council and finance staff establish where each dollar is spent and how much is in there. And
Thank you. And again, this policy would be coming back for council consideration. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. I'll turn the chair back to Mayor McQueen.
Thank you, Chair Allwood. So moving on to item 14 on our agenda, the consent agenda. Are there any of those two items, I think it is, that wish to be pulled for separate just direction? If not, can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Dubik, any discussion on those two items? Basically under your portfolio, Councillor Dubik. If there's no other questions, all in favor? That's carried. Are there any, oh, yep, we don't have any other additions, so are there any notice of motions? Councillor Wickens.
Yeah, just give me a second to find this. It was, yes, it was recommendation number 5. So I could notice a motion that council approve the road safety community partnership committee meetings to take place in person. There was an ask to get the committee together face to face and kind of get to know one another a little better. And so.
Okay. Providing that on a timely manner before next Monday, right? That's being by Monday. Right. As I looked at the deputy clerk, sorry, I didn't just talk in the space. Yeah, no, I was just thinking, I was respecting your time deadlines there. Are there any other notice of motions? Contemplating one. Well, I'm going to put a notice of motion on. I'm going to step out of that. I'll put a notice of motion that mileage is to be paid for the livestock evaluators in municipality of Grey Highlands. All right. Are there any other notice motions? Okay, seeing none. County Council report.
No, go for it.
No, you go first, and I'll follow up.
All right, fair enough. Thanks, Mayor McQueen. So we had our last county council meeting. There was a significant discussion during the actual quote council portion of the county meeting regarding Rockwood Terrace calculations of cost. So the county has directed the consultant to come back with a change in scope to the size of the project. The consultant came back with a estimated budget of 96.7 million.
Yep, 96.
Up from the 92 million, which was the original conversation at the county table. So there was actually a very robust conversation around that. The final vote was requested as a recorded vote, and I think it was 74-26 or whatever, 74-30 something. It ends up being more than 100. But anyway, so that did carry, and we'll be proceeding forward. So there is part of that was to proceed quickly with the earthworks that are required, hoping to meet the provincial deadline of starting construction. So there's been a top up of funding from the province, who had a deadline of the end of August. The county does have a delegation at AMO regarding Rockwood Terrace with the Ministry of Long-Term Care. So that was the county meeting, the committee of the whole meeting. There was a few different discussions regarding the community of banks, kind of out towards Tunnel Mountains, wanting some information around changing of speeds. They cited Kimberly, Ceylon, and Eugenia as 3 towns that had change of speeds to lower them down recently. So that was kind of interesting. They are the actual town of Banks. Its jurisdiction is currently a 70-kilometer zone, but there's kind of a 60 zone before it and a 50 zone after it. So there's good conversation there. Where county is moving forward with a new management program. I forget what the name of the program is, but it is not Think Compass, which is what we use here at Great Highlands. Andrea Matrasoff and Ian Body both went to Cleveland and took part in the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative around protection of the freshwater reserves in all the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence. They came back with a pretty robust conversation around what's been taking place there. 300 and some odd regional municipalities, upper tier, lower tier municipalities, cities in the states are all signed on to the agreement to try to protect the Great Lakes. And then next year's meeting, I think they said, is in Montreal. So yeah, those are the main things that stood out in my mind. Mayor McQueen, if you have anything you want to add to it.
Well, this regards to the redevelopment for Rockwood Terrace. The hope is with the delegation at AMO, they are still able to qualify for that extra subsidy that you had to be in the ground by August 30th. Their tenders are going out. They're hoping to have them back by the end of August. So they're hoping that they can make a pitch, because that, I think it's like equivalent to over the life of the Rockwood Terrace, it's like $30 million.
Mhm.
And so that's a chunk of change that could knock off that 96.7 if they could get that. And it's, the deadline was August. You had to be shovels in the ground by the end of August this year. But gosh darn it all, if you got your tenders in and, you know, by the end of August and you're ready to go, I mean, so they're hoping, because that's a big chunk of change, right? So that was out there. So that was a big thing that was discussed, and being so advocately wise, we were going to be pushing that real hard. So it is $500,000 per $500 per square foot is what the consultant is saying. Hoping that it comes in less, but there's a lot of commercial, industrial, public developments happening in the province. So it's a bit daunting, because there's a lot of projects that are happening and there's only so much to go around right now. Maybe with Brew Construction finishing up here at the Marque Hospital, maybe they'll be real keen to stay in Grey County and continue on. Deputy Mayor, you had a comment?
Just, sorry, Mayor McQueen, I didn't want to interrupt your statement on the Rockwood Terrace. There was one thing I forgot to mention that I thought was interesting was Grey County received correspondence from Beth Ezekiel Synagogue condemning recent acts of hate in the community, both against members of the Jewish faith as well as LGBTQ plus everything else. And so there was, the warden did have a full statement around Grey County's interest in inclusivity, and that kind of from the beginning of this term of council, the statement has been Grey County is better together. The more members, the more community groups that exist within Grey County, the more visions, the more belief systems coming together to help direct Grey County is better than having a single direction. So that's just something I did want to point out, because it was important. It is important that the county itself, but also us as municipal leaders, showcase that everybody is welcome within our community, that there really is no place to discrimination and hate around the municipalities and the county for any reason. We should be trying to work together to make everywhere a better place.
Okay, thanks for that. And it's, I think it is on the website, his proclamation, or however you wish to call it. warden statement. That's what it is. Are there any questions for county council information? Councillor Elwood.
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. I noticed the county's working on their strat plan with McSweeney and Associates, which was the organization that Gray Highlands worked on our last strat plan with. Kind of interesting.
Yes, and there is going to be some interaction at the wardens forum. They're going to be there. And that's in Neustadt. I think everybody was sent the invitation through Maya. So if you're able to attend, it would be good. Last year it was in the Sydenham School.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a good opportunity to network with your fellow colleagues or other municipalities in the county of Gray. And it's an afternoon session with a meal, and I think it's wrapping up around 8 o'clock. So if you're able to attend, it's a good opportunity to swap ideas with your other colleagues and a little bit of discussion points there. Since there's no other questions, can I have a motion then to receive the highlights of the July 13th county council meeting? Councillor Elwood, Councillor Dubik. All in favor? That's carried. All right, Councillor Burbidge, what's on everybody's mind? What's happening? Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I'll start with just expressing some excitement with Markdale Rotary's Street Frolic. Another fantastic event was put on. There was lots to do all on Main Street in Markdale. Bingo, bouncy castles, games, prizes, dunk tank. I had an opportunity to call a few of the bingo games, and I had an opportunity to be repeatedly dunked in the dunk tank. My child's baseball team and soccer team came out in full support to just sink me as many times as they could, which was awesome. I heard quickly that they raised over $1,000 just at the dunk tank alone for it. I will also add that I had the pleasure of being the first person to dunk Alex Ruff. As soon as he hit that seat, I got to put him down, which was entertaining. Yeah, it was a great community event. I think I would say around 8:15, that street was packed. It was really well attended. There was hundreds of people all out enjoying themselves. The band was playing some decent music that people were up having fun with. So it's exciting. And then I guess it's this coming Friday is the car show in Markdale. So another fun-filled event, usually brings a significant crowd to downtown Markdale again. I think the last couple of years it just seems to be growing, the car show, going further and further down the road, almost all the way to the old Chapman's lot was where the cars ended last year, because Mayor McQueen was the last couple of cars there. So just exciting to see the community come out and get together. And then I also just want to quickly add that I had a fantastic day of golf to support the Sea and Ski Realties golf tournament fundraising funds for the hospital foundation, not the new hospital build, but the actual foundation that helps to procure all the equipment and all the services we need every year. So in the last 2 years, I think they've raised just shy of 30,000 each year, and given the attendance and number of players that were there again this year, it was a beautiful day. I'm sure they probably came close to that $30,000 mark again. So it's fantastic to see everybody come out and support our community groups as they try to raise some funds for the community.
Okay, well, thank you for those updates, and we'll see where all the parking is at the night of all the car show and where everybody's parking. Because there'll be a lot of people.
I was on the side streets.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of parking that night for sure. That'll be an example. Anything else from Councilor Lohead?
Sure. Just a quick report about the grand opening of the Hogs Falls Trail Network, which Deputy Mayor said some words at. Truly a wonderful addition to Gray Highlands, a great partnership of private, not-for-profit, and the province was represented there, federal government was represented there. I mean, just so many different moving parts coming together, and big, beautiful bridges spanning the Boyne Creek there, I suppose, just by Hogs Falls. So a really lovely little circuit now in place with the bridges traversing the water. Really nicely attended. Had a great time at it. And yeah, again, just a wonderful addition to the trail network here in Gray Highlands.
Yeah, half of us, the other half were at school, at the side turning at school, right? So we split ourselves up that way, but Right. Any other updates, what's happening in our community? There is the Markdale Veterinary Service 50 years anniversary on Saturday from noon to 3. It's on my calendar, and I know that they've provided a great service throughout the year. I know I did get a note back that some of their services aren't 24/7 anymore. I guess they're having trouble with staffing and stuff like that. So, did we receive, Madam CEO, yesterday was the RFP for the engineering services for the updating water and wastewater master servicing plan. Did we get, anybody can report on that? Madam CEO?
Thank you, Mayor McQueen. I believe we got 3 responses, and staff are currently evaluating those based on the criteria. It was a two-stage process, so the dollar amounts have not been opened yet. So the proposals are being evaluated in 2 separate stages, but there was 3 submissions.
Better than none. Thank you for that. Just going through my calendar the next 2 weeks. There's anything else that comes up? Nothing comes up offhand. So are there any last call for council privileges? Any comments, anything? All right. Closed session. There are none. Confirming bylaw, that bylaw 2023-103 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on July 19, 2023 be read for a second and third time and finally passed, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign and seal the same, notwithstanding any contrary provisions of council. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Allwood, all in favor? That is carried. Upcoming meetings. So I did ask a question about meetings in August, but we're meeting right through into September. There's no holiday there. Okay, can remember because we make that decision back in November, right? Right. Sometimes we do take a break that week of AMO, but AMO maybe doesn't because sometimes. Yeah, so that'll be outside the week before AMO, so that's not a problem because that's sometimes why AMO, and it's a conflict, right? Because you can't get back in time for that council meeting. So, all right, seeing there's nothing else regards to dates, I need one more motion to adjourn. Councillor Allen, second by Deputy Mayor. Council adjourns at, that's pretty accurate now, isn't it? 1:53. All in favor? I know I get the 2 in front. You think I would have went to school and learned that, right? But you know what? I don't think kids learn on clocks.